What if the fragrance of the afterlife was nothing but charred meat and sea salt? What if this bouquet of death danced on the winds of a Viking funeral, where warriors sailed into the horizon, bonfires illuminating their final voyage, an olfactory symphony of smoke and sorrow, glory and grotesque? Every whisper of the past carries a scent, but what you thought you knew about Viking funerals is just the tip of an iceberg. The real story is a tempest waiting to break. Picture this, a longship, its dragon-head prow slicing through the waves, laden not just with treasures but with the warrior's very essence, his triumphs, his failures, his blood-soaked memories. As the pyre blazes, the smoke twists toward the heavens, an invitation to gods and ghosts alike, mingling with the salt of the sea. But what stirs beneath those waters? What secrets are hidden in the crevices of history that smell faintly of scorched flesh and laughter? Forget what you've been told. The ancient Scandinavians didn't just burn their dead, they orchestrated a macabre performance, a carnival of death that would make today's reality shows look like child's play. Would you believe that a Viking funeral could be more pungent than a fish market in July? More intoxicating than the finest mead? The air thick with the scent of victory, mingled with the dank aroma of decay, a cocktail that could make even the bravest warrior weak at the knees. Each element of the ceremony drips with irony. The flames lick the sky, while the mourners, cloaked in furs and fierce bravado, share jokes that would send a modern-day comedian running for cover. Does a funeral truly belong to the samba? Or is it a raucous celebration, a twisted acknowledgement of life's fragility, a commitment to revelry even in death? The ship doesn't just carry a body, it carries a culture, alive and breathing, echoing memories of blood feuds and sea raids. The scent of burning wood and the acrid tang of smoke mingle with the salt of tears, creating an unforgettable aroma that seeps into the very bones of history. What does that say about us? What does it reveal about the raw, savage beauty of existence? Imagine a crowd shouting cheers, loud enough to wake the gods. Picture the crackle of the fire as it devours the flesh of a fallen warrior, the flames casting flickering shadows on faces painted with laughter and sorrow. Did they grieve? Did they celebrate? Or did they do both in a chaotic dance, fueled by the intoxicating aroma that filled their lungs and ignited their spirits? There lies a riddle beneath the ash and smoke. It beckons you closer, daring you to decode its fragrant enigma. The Viking funeral wasn't just a farewell, it was a sensory explosion that shouted defiantly into the void. And as you peel back the layers of scent and symbolism, you begin to question everything you thought you knew about death, honor, and the very essence of life. Welcome to the unforgettable, the unthinkable. Welcome to the true scent of a Viking farewell. The flames lick at the sky, a furious dance of orange and crimson silhouetting the jagged cliffs against the twilight. I stand knee-deep in the cold, murky waters of the fjord, the air heavy with the scent of salt and smoke, mingling with something darker, grief. The wooden longship, a coffin adorned with shields and spears, is a haunting sight, gliding slowly toward its fiery fate. I can hear the murmurs of the gathered clan, a chorus of sorrow and reverence, their faces painted with shadows, their hearts beating in a rhythm of loss. I remember the first time I saw a Viking funeral. I was a child then, nestled in the safety of my mother's embrace, her heartbeat a soothing melody against my ear. I was shielded from the chaos, the heaviness of the moment, but now I stand alone, a man forged in the fires of remembrance. I can't shake the memory of Astrid, her laughter ringing like a chime in the distance, now reduced to a ghost, a flickering shadow beneath the flames. I remember her smile, wild and unyielding, the way it lit up even the darkest corners of our village. But as the fire consumes the vessel, I feel the weight of the world pressing down. Eric, my brother, stands beside me, his eyes vacant yet filled with a storm. He looms large, a warrior forged in the image of gods, yet today he is a hollow man, grief gnawing at him like a wolf at the edge of our camp. He had sworn to protect Astrid, to bring her back from the brink, but he failed. The guilt clings to him, a heavy cloak that he cannot shed. It was my duty, he whispers, voice trembling, and I failed her. I want to comfort him, to tell him it wasn't his fault, but the words choke in my throat, caught in the web of my own despair. The flames leap higher, crackling, the heat searing my skin. I can feel the raw desperation of the clan, their hearts bound together by loss, and yet, in that moment, I can't escape the selfish desire clawing at my insides. I want to scream, to howl at the gods who toy with our lives, who take our loved ones and leave us grasping at shadows. Do you think they can hear us? I ask Eric, desperation leaking from my voice. Do you think she knows? He turns to me, eyes wide, as if I've struck him. She is Ash now, he croaks, the truth reverberating in the air around us. And Ash knows nothing. But still, I search his face, looking for some glimmer of hope, something to grasp onto in this sea of despair. Astrid was everything, her laughter was the sun rising over the fjord, illuminating the dark corners of our lives. She was the heart of our clan, a beacon of light in a world that often felt like a tempest. I remember the stories we shared, huddled around the fire, her voice weaving tales of gods and monsters, of love and loss. I remember the night she danced beneath the stars, the way she twirled, her hair a wild halo of gold, her spirit unbroken, even as the shadows crept in. Life was beautiful then, we were invincible, or so we thought. Eric stares past me, lost in the abyss of his thoughts, and for a moment, time stretches, becoming an endless void. The flames crackle, casting eerie shadows on the faces around us. I can see Torvald, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, his hand clutching a wretched token, an old brooch that belonged to Astrid, a remnant of a life now extinguished. I can feel their despair, a palpable wave crashing against me, pulling me under, drowning me in the weight of their sorrow. In this moment, I realize that our traditions, these Viking funerals, these fiery goodbyes, are not just for the dead. They are for us, the living, the ones who remain with the echoes of laughter and the ghosts of memories. The flames are a bridge, a passage to the unknown, and as I watch the ship ignite, I can't help but feel the pull of its warmth beckoning me closer. Are we really sending her off, brother? I ask, voice barely a whisper. Or are we just trying to cleanse our own souls? Eric's expression darkens, and for a heartbeat, the world narrows to just us, two brothers encased in sorrow. The fire crackles, the wood splinters, and the flames roar, a chorus of anguish. We do this for her, he says, though the force of his conviction wanes, the doubt bleeding through. She deserves to be free. But do we? Do we deserve the peace that comes with this ritual? Does the flickering light of the flames offer solace, or is it merely an illusion, a cruel trick played by the fates? The ship is now a fireball, consuming everything that was Astrid, and I feel the heat wash over me, a sharp reminder of what we've lost. The chanting begins, a low hum rising from the gathered souls, a haunting melody that reverberates through the air. I close my eyes, surrendering to the moment, and I can almost hear her laughter again, carried by the wind, threading through the chaos like a soft lullaby. I remember the way she touched the world, vibrant and alive, every heartbeat a testament to her spirit. The flames dance, and I see her in the flickers, wild, untamed, alive. The laughter mingles with the crackling flames, and I am caught between two worlds, the agony of the present and the ghostly echoes of the past. The line between life and death blurs, and in that moment, I realize the true nature of our traditions. They are not merely rituals, they are lifelines, connecting us to those we've lost and to the stories that linger in the shadows. I look at Eric, searching for the last flicker of hope in those stormy eyes. We will honor her, I say with an intensity that surprises even me. We will remember her. As the ship burns, I know this isn't the end. It's merely a transformation, a metamorphosis into something greater. The flames will rise, and so will her spirit, soaring through the cosmos like a comet, bright and uncontainable, forever echoing in our hearts. And as the last remnants of the ship dissolve into the night sky, I feel the heavy burden of grief shift ever so slightly. Astrid may be lost to the world, but she will never be lost to us. The chanting swells, washing over me, and I hold onto my brother's arm, the warmth of his presence grounding me amidst the chaos. Together we stand witness to the fiery tribute, our hearts entwined with the embers of memory, with the promise of tomorrow whispering just beyond the horizon. The wind howled like a banshee, shrieking through the gnarled trees as if trying to carry away the last vestiges of hope. I stood there, shivering, my breath visible in the bitter air, and felt it, the weight of inevitability pressing against my chest like a stone. The flames danced in the distance, flickering like the last heartbeat of a dying star, and I was drawn to them, to their warmth, their promise of life amidst the encroaching darkness. I remember the crackle of the fire, the way it licked the air hungrily, calling out to me, whispering secrets that should have remained buried. I remember the faces of those who gathered around it, shadows caught in the orange glow, eyes reflecting the flames like desperate lovers. Astrid, fierce and wild, stood there, her hair a fiery halo, her spirit unyielding. She was a warrior, forged from hardships, scars tracing her skin like a map of battles fought and lost. But even her resolve faltered in the face of the consuming blaze. Fire is life, but it is also death, she had said once, her voice a hymn that echoed through the night, a warning wrapped in a riddle. I remember Magnus, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched a torch, the flickers of light illuminating the fear in his eyes, the uncertainty that gnawed at him like a ravenous wolf. He had always been the thinker, the one who questioned everything, even the gods. "What is the value of a flame that devours what it touches?" he asked once, and I had laughed, a hollow sound that barely masked my own doubt. An ironic jest in a land where even the sun seemed to hesitate before casting its light. "Tonight, it serves as our salvation," I had declared, yet I could feel the tremor in my voice. The flames were not merely heat, they were the embodiment of our beliefs, the bridge between our world and the unknown, a promise of rebirth and an echo of destruction. They were the fire that created and the fire that consumed, the very essence of the cycle of life and death that we clung to with fragile hands. And now, as I stood on the precipice of chaos, I could see the shadows shift around the fire, bodies moving like phantoms, each flicker of light revealing a truth too raw to confront. I felt it, an electric tension crackling in the air, each heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the flames. The past loomed, specters of history whispering warnings, urging caution, but the fire was relentless, casting aside shame, doubt, and regret, igniting the passions we had stifled deep within. Astrid stepped forward, her voice rising above the crackle, a chant that morphed into a battle cry. "The flames are our ancestors, guiding us. They are our spirit, our sacrifice." Her words surged through the crowd, a palpable force, igniting a fire of conviction that mirrored the one before us. I watched her, the intensity of her belief lighting a spark in my chest, an ember of courage emerging from the ashes of fear. But Magnus, ever the skeptic, hesitated. "And what if they are our doom?" he challenged, his voice laced with an urgency that resonated through the night. "What if the fire is merely a reflection of our own destruction? A reflection of our greed, our desire to consume, to conquer?" His words hung in the air, heavy like the smoke that curled around us, stifling and familiar, and I could feel the unease ripple through the crowd, a chorus of doubt rising like a tide. The flames roared, as if enraged by our questioning, crackling louder, spitting embers like fireworks. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. I found myself teetering on the edge of reason, caught between the allure of the flame and the chilling reminder of what it meant. Fire had always been a double-edged sword in our beliefs, offering warmth and light, yet capable of ravaging our dreams, laying waste to our hopes, consuming everything we cherished in an instant. I felt my heart race, the heat creeping up my skin, igniting memories I thought I had buried. The night my father had walked into the flames to save our village, how he had carried the torch high, a beacon of light against the encroaching dark. How I had watched, paralyzed, as the fire swallowed him whole, transforming love into ash. The irony clawed at me, he had become the very thing we revered and feared. "Fire is salvation," Astrid shouted, but her voice wavered, uncertainty creeping in as she noticed the doubt in Magnus's eyes. My chest tightened. "What if it's not?" I whispered, almost to myself. The flames flickered as if mocking me, and I felt the weight of my own questions, the fear of facing the truth. What if we were wrong? What if the very essence we revered was nothing but a phantom of our own creation? In that moment, the fire erupted, a swirling tempest of heat and light, and I knew we were standing at a precipice, a moment where belief could either lift us to the heavens or plunge us into the abyss. The flames roared, their voices weaving through our souls, a symphony of life, death, and everything in between. I turned, caught in the whirlwind of emotion, the love for my people, the fear of losing them, the longing to understand the very essence of our existence. It was all too much, too overwhelming, and I felt the tears well up, each drop a testament to the bond we shared, forged in the crucible of fire. And then Astrid's eyes met mine, fierce and unwavering. "Together we are stronger than any flame," she declared, a rallying cry that echoed in my heart. The fire crackled in agreement, a chorus of flames rising high, illuminating the dark, urging us to confront the shadows that lingered in the recesses of our minds. In that moment, I understood, the significance of fire transcended mere survival. It was about connection, about the ties that bound us together in the face of uncertainty. It was the heartbeat of our existence, the pulse of our beliefs, and I felt it deep within me, a roaring flame igniting my spirit, urging me to stand tall. The air was thick with tension, charged with the promise of confrontation. The flickering flames beckoned us closer. We were on the edge, poised to step into the unknown, and I could sense the breath of the world around us, holding its own as we moved toward the fire, into the heart of our fears, our convictions, and the very essence of who we were. The dance of flames continued, a haunting melody that wrapped around us, pulling us deeper into the storm of our beliefs, where the past and the future entwined, waiting for our next move. The air hung thick with the scent of fire, a bitter tang that clawed at the throat. I stood on the precipice, a mere shadow among shadows. The pyre loomed before me, a monstrous structure of timber, stacked high and twisted like the gnarled fingers of the dead reaching for the sky. Each piece of wood, dark, aged, and scarred, whispered secrets of lives lived and lost. My heart pounded, echoing in the silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. "Do it!" A voice, sharp as an arrowhead, sliced through the stillness. It belonged to Freya, her face a mask of fury and grief, pale and streaked with the remnants of tears. I could see her trembling, the weight of her decision clawing at her insides, and I understood, this was not just a pyre, not merely a funeral. This was a reckoning. I remember the first time I laid eyes on her, fiery and fierce, with a laugh that could summon storms. But now, that laughter was buried under layers of sorrow, like the body that lay wrapped in linen upon the pyre. It was Eric, my brother, who had once danced in the moonlight, his spirit uncontainable, now extinguished. A brutal reminder that life hangs by the thinnest of threads, that joy can turn to ash faster than a heart can beat. And oh, how my heart raced, a wild thing, thrumming against my ribs like a caged bird desperate for flight. I clutched the torch tightly, its wooden handle slick with sweat. The flame danced above it, flickering like the last breaths of the lost, and I wondered, was this the moment when it would all change? Would setting him alight free us, or would it bind us forever to the ghosts of our past? The wind howled, teasing at my resolve, sending shivers down my spine. "Eric!" Freya cried, a sound that sliced through the air with the precision of a sword. "Your flame will not die, not in this world nor the next." Her words were a promise, heavy with desperation, but I saw the way her hands shook, the way she wavered at the edge of faith. We had gathered the finest wood, logs stripped of their bark, their surfaces glistening under the twilight. But it was the aromatics that would seal our fate, bundles of dried herbs and plants, gathered during the height of summer when the scent of life was thick and full. I could almost smell the lavender, its sweetness now a bitter memory, the sage mingling with the decay of our grief. I remember the last time Eric had stood by the fire, eyes glinting with mischief, tossing herbs into the flames just to watch them dance. "Look at them, Magnus! They're alive," he had said, entranced. I had laughed then, the sound light and free, not knowing those moments would become relics. Now, those very herbs would turn to smoke, a cloud of memory that would haunt our dreams. "Let go!" Freya's voice cracked, her eyes wild, searching mine for support. "Let the flames take him. We cannot carry this burden." Her breath came quick, a torrent of anguish spilling forth. I felt it too, the weight of his absence settling upon my shoulders like a cloak made of stone. But beneath it all, the fear twisted through me like a serpent. What if we burned him too? What if the fire consumed the very essence of who he was? "Freya," I whispered, my voice barely more than a ghost. "What if we forget?" Her eyes, once bright, turned stormy. "Forget? No. He will always be with us. In the smoke, in the ashes. In our memories." I wanted to believe her, I did. But faith has a way of splintering in the face of reality. The wood was dry, ready to ignite, but my heart was heavy with doubt. It was a dark kind of irony, standing amidst the scent of cedar and pine, a reminder of all the life that should have been. The torch flickered, casting a ghostly glow across Freya's face, illuminating the shadows that clung to her like a second skin. I was trapped between the past and the present, each heartbeat a reminder of the love we'd lost. And then, a spark. The flame leapt to life, hissing and snapping, hungry for the kindling. My heart raced, an unsteady drum, as I stepped closer to the pyre, the weight of the moment pressing against me. The acrid smoke curled upward, a spectral finger pointing toward the heavens, and I could feel every soul in that clearing, every whispered memory, pulling me in. Together, Freya breathed, her eyes locked on mine, fierce in their determination. I nodded, resolved yet trembling, and together we lowered the torch to the wood. Fire surged, a wild animal unleashed, crackling as it devoured the timber. Flames danced and swirled, licking at the air, and with each flicker, I felt the memories wash over me, Eric laughing, Eric dancing, Eric alive. "Forgive me," I whispered, but the flames roared louder, drowning my voice in their chaos. The aroma of the burning herbs filled the night, sweet and suffocating, and I closed my eyes, surrendering to the heat, to the moment of letting go. I felt the air shimmer with Eric's spirit, a fleeting caress that brushed against my skin. In that instant, the pain of loss morphed into a bittersweet ache, a recognition of love that transcended the corporeal. And in that chaos of fire and grief, I knew we were not alone. The faces of our ancestors flickered in the flames, guiding us, comforting us in our sorrow. Each crackling ember sang of triumph, loss, and love, weaving through the very fabric of our existence. I turned to Freya, her face illuminated by the flames, and saw the glimmer of something more, acceptance. We had ignited the pyre, but in essence, we had ignited hope, the kind that dances wildly in the night, refusing to be snuffed out. Together, she said again, her voice breaking through the roar of the fire, and as we stood there, united in our grief, I understood. The pyre was not an end, but a beginning, a transformation of our sorrow into something eternal, a bridge between worlds that would never truly separate us. The fire crackled, the flames reached higher, and I knew, in that moment, that we were bound together in the dance of remembrance, forever intertwined with the wood and the aromatics, with the very essence of life and death, and the love that would never fade. The fire crackled, its warmth a cruel irony in the chill of the night. Shadows danced over the gathered crowd, flickering like the thoughts that raced through my mind. I stood there, heart pounding, surrounded by faces etched in grief and resolute fury. The ship loomed behind me, a dark silhouette against a sea of stars. It was not just wood and iron, it was the soul of the Viking, the vessel of the departed and the promise of what lay ahead. I could almost hear the whispers of the past, the laughter of those lost. The air was heavy with the scent of pitch and pine, the weight of expectation pressing down like a winter's snow. Sigurd, my brother, lay upon that ship, draped in furs as if the earth itself were cradling him for one last journey. He had fought bravely, too bravely, some said. I remember the way his laughter could fill a hall, how it echoed in my chest like a war drum. But now, silence enveloped him. I wanted to scream, to claw my way back into those sunlit days, to drag him back from the embrace of the cold. I could see the flicker of doubt in the eyes of our kin. What kind of brother am I, to let him go like this? The ship was adorned with the spoils of his life, shields, swords, and the trinkets of 1,000 victories. They shone like stars fallen to earth, each one a reminder of his bravery, each one carving the painful reality deeper into my heart. I felt the sharp sting of tears, but I fought them, clawing at the edges of my despair. There was something sacred about this moment, yet it felt so profoundly wrong. I had always been the one to protect him, and now, as he lay there, I felt like a coward. "Do it!" The cry rang out, shattering the silence. It was Freydis, a fierce warrior, her eyes wild with determination, yet haunted by the spectre of grief. She had loved Sigurd fiercely, a flame that burned brighter than the sun, and now it flickered weakly in the face of loss. I could see her hands trembling, fists clenched, as she glared at the ship. He deserves this. He deserves to sail into the afterlife. But did he? Did any of us deserve this? I remember the way she would challenge him, how they would spar under the moonlight, her laughter mingling with the night air. Now, it felt like a haunting echo. The ship, a mechanism of farewell, loomed large in her fury. It was as if she believed the flames would somehow resurrect him, that the fire would carry his spirit into Valhalla, where warriors feasted and fought forever. The torches blazed, illuminating the faces of warriors and kin alike. I could see the collective heartbeat of the crowd, a palpable tension that thrummed like an ancient drum. Each person here carried their own burden, their own ghosts. The ship was a mirror reflecting their pain, their love, their unyielding need for closure. I felt the weight of their eyes on me, drawing me into the storm of their shared grief. I stepped forward, every movement feeling like wading through thick mud. The flames crackled with anticipation, a symphony of heat and light. "Wait!" I shouted, my voice breaking against the fire's roar. The crowd turned, a wave of confusion and anger washing over them. What if he doesn't want this? What if he's still with us? A hush fell, the kind that wraps around you like a thick fog. I could hear the rustling of leaves, the whispering wind, and suddenly, I felt small and fragile. Sigurd's eyes, bright and fierce, flashed through my mind. Would he want to be set ablaze? To be sent sailing into the unknown, or would he want to remain here, among us? I could feel Freydis' gaze burning into me, a heat that could melt stone. The ship, a symbol of strength and sorrow, held more than just his body. It held our dreams, our memories, our battles. It was a bridge between the worlds, the living and the dead. I thought of the nights we spent under the stars, listening to the stories of our ancestors. We were all searching for meaning, for a way to navigate the treacherous waters of life and death. This is not just about him, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. It's about us. Freydis stepped closer, her eyes fierce as storm clouds. You think this is easy? That I want to see him go? This is our way. We honor the dead, we send them off in flames, and we do it with pride. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability hidden behind her warrior's mask. You don't understand. The flames carry their spirit. It's our duty to let them go. I remembered the tales of the great hall, where warriors would gather, where laughter echoed like the clash of swords. Would Sigurd's laughter still resonate there? Would he join the great banquet, or would he linger here, lost and alone? The cosmos above pulsed with the energy of all who had come before us, each one a flicker of light in the vast darkness. The ship creaked, a living entity caught in the throes of our choices. The fire flickered ominously, casting shadows that felt alive, as if they were reaching for something just beyond the veil of sight. I could almost hear the whispers of forgotten souls urging us on. The scent of smoke wrapped around my throat, tightening like a noose. A collective breath filled the air, a shared heartbeat, a moment caught between despair and defiance. The fire was almost ready, and I could feel the urgency of the moment, the weight of expectation pressing heavy on my chest. I glanced at Sigurd one last time, his body a canvas painted with the triumphs and failures of a life well lived. This is it, I thought, feeling the pull of destiny, the call of the unknown. I was scared of losing him, scared of losing myself in the flames. But I couldn't hold him back. The ship, our ship, was a vessel of both grief and celebration. It would carry him away, but it also bound us together. Freydis stepped back, her expression a mixture of anger and resolve. Let him go, she whispered, her voice breaking like a wave upon the shore. Let him go. I stood frozen, the flames licking higher, the shadows deepening, the night closing in. The moment stretched, an eternal heartbeat, before the world exploded in fire and light, a celestial dance of sorrow and release. The ship ignited, a brilliant phoenix rising against the night, and I was left standing, heart raw, watching it all fade into the ether, a reminder that love, even in loss, could be both beautiful and haunting. And as the flames consumed the ship, I felt the weight shift, between grief, acceptance, and the unyielding push of time, where every heartbeat echoed with the promise of what comes next. The cold wind howled through the fjords like 1,000 lost souls crying out for vengeance. I stood there, heart racing, as the flickering torches cast wavering shadows on the faces of those gathered. The air was thick with anticipation, a charged silence that settled over the crowd like a shroud. I could barely breathe. A figure lay draped across a longship, a warrior in life and death, adorned with iron and bone. The smell of smoke and the sweet rot of earth clung to me, as if I were caught between the living and the dead. Eric, a man of steel and sorrow, stood beside me, his jaw clenched tight enough to crush stones. His brother, Bjorn, lay within that ship, a brother who had once laughed like thunder and fought like the very gods. Now, he was reduced to this, a body wrapped in honor and grief. I could see the trembling in Eric's hands, the desperate need to hold on to something real amidst the chaos. "Today, we send him off," he murmured, but his voice cracked, revealing the rawness beneath, the aching impossibility of this farewell. I remember the stories passed around the fires at night, how the Vikings would send their kin to the afterlife with flames and song, believing that the blaze would guide their spirits to Valhalla. Yet standing at the edge of this moment, the legends felt like cruelty, each tale a knife twisting in my gut. The flames were meant to be purifying, but all I could think was how they would consume everything left of Bjorn, leaving nothing but ash and memory. The gathering of villagers whispered among themselves, their breaths visible in the brittle air, knitting a tapestry of sorrow and camaraderie. I caught Fjolife's gaze, her eyes pools of grief. She had loved Bjorn fiercely, as if the world dared not touch him. But the world had its way, didn't it? Time was a thief, and now it was stealing her future, leaving only the ghost of what could have been. I felt a lump in my throat as I considered her pain, raw and exposed like a wound that would never heal. In that moment, I wanted to scream, to rage against fate, to cry out for all of us who were left behind to shoulder the weight of this farewell. As the priest stepped forward, clad in furs and cloaked in authority, the weight of tradition settled over us like a heavy fog. He raised a branch of yew, the sacred tree of death, and began to chant. His words were ancient, powerful, echoing across the water, sending ripples of unease through the crowd. I watched Eric's face, the way his features hardened, lined with the fierce determination of a warrior yet to falter. I could see the battle within him, the anger at fate, the helplessness, the longing for just one more moment with his brother. "I remember the last time we laughed together," Eric whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. It was like the gods themselves were with us. He clenched his fists, knuckles white against the night. "Now this." His voice broke, torn between rage and despair. "This is how they repay him." A sudden crack of thunder rolled in the distance, a portent of the storm that was to come, as if the heavens themselves mourned with us. It was almost comical, the way the sky mirrored our grief. I wanted to laugh but couldn't. I wanted to scream at the gods, shake my fists at the clouds and demand justice for all we had lost. But there was no justice here. Only a ship, a burning funeral pyre, a promise of what lay beyond. Light flickered against the longship as the priest lit the kindling, and my heart raced with a morbid thrill. Flames licked the edges of the vessel, hungry and wild. For a moment, I felt a thrill of fear, a pulse of adrenaline that coursed through me like the first taste of battle. Would it hurt? Would Bjorn see the faces of those he loved as he crossed over, or would the flames consume him whole, leaving nothing but a memory behind? I remember how the fire danced, wild and unrestrained, as it embraced the wood like a lover reunited after years apart. The heat wrapped around me, stinging my skin, but I could not look away. I watched as the flames crept closer to Bjorn's body, the smoke curling upward, whispering secrets of the cosmos. The night sky, once a blanket of stars, now seemed to swallow the light, cloaking us in a dark embrace. I understood then that this was not just a funeral, it was a transformation. It was the final act of a life lived fiercely, love and loss intertwined like roots beneath the earth. As the flames consumed the ship, I saw Eric's face, awash with grief and fury. He dropped to his knees, hands pressed against the cold ground, as if he wished to claw back the earth and bury his brother deep within its embrace. The cries of the mourners rang out, a symphony of sorrow that echoed through the night, resonating with the beating of hearts shattered into pieces. And then there was Fjolife, her voice rising above the rest, a haunting melody tinged with desperation. "Bjorn! Come back to us!" She clutched a woven bracelet, her fingers trembling as she tossed it onto the flames. It spiraled through the air, a final gift of love, and I felt the world shudder, the air thickening with the weight of her loss. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her it would be okay, but the words caught in my throat, as heavy as the grief that surrounded us. The flames roared, fierce and alive, dancing, twisting in a celebration of life mingled with death. It was both beautiful and terrible, this act of release. I felt my breath hitch, the moment stretching, time suspended, a fragile thread pulling at the seams of my own heart. A part of me wanted to believe that in this fire, Bjorn would be reborn, something eternal rising from the ashes, but the other part, the darker part, whispered a finality of how quickly the living forget. As the flames consumed the vessel, I could not tell where the fire ended and the stars began. The smoke spiraled upwards, carrying with it our hopes, dreams, and the weight of our sorrow. I felt the universe ripple, the cosmos watching and waiting as we bore witness to this ritual, this rite of passage. And in that moment, the night sky felt impossibly vast, and I understood, we were all just ghosts dancing around the flames, clutching at memories and dreams, yearning for something greater, something beyond this life. The echoes of our laughter mingled with the crackle of the fire, a haunting reminder that while our bodies may crumble to ash, our spirits, our stories, would soar on the wings of the wind. As the last of the flames flickered against the encroaching darkness, I felt the emptiness settle in my bones, the loss tangible, heavy like the weight of destiny. The shadows stretched and twisted around us, and though the fire dimmed, the echoes of grief would linger, woven into the fabric of our lives, a part of us forever. We would carry it on, into the night, into tomorrow, our hearts forever marked by what was lost. The air hung thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a stark reminder of life's relentless circle. I stood still, heart thumping in my chest, drowning in the silence of the forest that bordered the village. A whisper of wind curled through the trees, rustling the branches like an ominous warning. Shadows danced, flickering between the trunks, as if the very essence of the woods was alive, watching, waiting. And then, the scream shattered the stillness, a raw, primal sound that sent a jolt of ice through my veins. "Lila?" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. I didn't know why I had come here, gathering wood and herbs, a chore turned into a nightmare. I didn't know whether to flee deeper into the shadows or to run back to the safety of the village, where ignorance could still be blissful. But the fear of losing her, my sister, my heartbeat, anchored me to this spot, even as dread coiled around my gut. Lila's laughter had always been the sunlight breaking through the trees, bright and warm. But that sound, the one that echoed through the thickets, was nothing like her joy. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at my clothes, tearing at my skin. "Lila?" Each call became a desperate prayer, a plea to whatever spirits might be lurking, listening, waiting. I caught a glimpse of her, a flash of her golden hair, just beyond a thicket, illuminated by a shaft of golden light. My heart surged, hope igniting a flame inside me. But as I drew closer, I saw the shadows shift and change around her, twisting into impossible shapes, draping dark tendrils that seemed to whisper secrets only the trees could understand. She was knelt over something, her small hands trembling. Fear twisted in my heart, a knife of dread slicing deeper as I approached. "Lila, what is it?" Her voice was a mere whisper, as fragile as the first blooms of spring. "I found something." Her fingers trembled, revealing a small, lifeless creature, its fur matted, eyes dull. The forest had claimed it, an offering to some unseen deity. "Leave it. We have to go." I grabbed her arm, the urgency in my voice startling her. But she pulled away, her eyes wide with something I didn't understand, a curiosity, maybe. Or was it something darker, a whisper of something she couldn't voice? "No, wait. I need to see." "No. Lila, it's dangerous. Please." The words tore from my throat, a desperate plea that felt like a betrayal. The forest was not just a collection of trees and herbs, it was a living thing, a labyrinth of secrets that could devour us whole. But she was already leaning closer, her face just inches from the creature. Was it just the forest, or was this something more? A promise of power? Of knowledge? I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders, the enormity of choices unfurling like the branches around us. "What if it's a sign?" she murmured, her fascination igniting a spark of fear inside me. I remembered the stories. Those who lingered too long in the woods often didn't return, or came back changed. Lila, we have to gather what we came for. I touched her shoulder, and it felt like a lifeline. Please. Her eyes met mine, swimming with something unspoken, a shared history of warmth and laughter that felt like an ancient bond. But the fear bubbled beneath the surface, unacknowledged yet palpable. She pulled back and shook her head, the golden strands of her hair catching the light. I can't. I need to know what happened. I opened my mouth to argue, but at that moment, the forest seemed to exhale, a chilling breath that curled around us like smoke. The trees swayed, and for a heartbeat, I thought I could hear them whispering, murmuring secrets that the wind carried away. Lila, please. My voice was a fraying rope, teetering on the edge of despair. What if it's wrong? What if it brings something bad? But there was a glint in her eye, a spark of defiance. She was drawn to the unknown. I could see it in the way her fingers traced the creature's body, as if weaving a spell with each touch. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to drag her away from whatever dark curiosity had ensnared her. But I stood frozen, a witness to the unfolding, the inevitable. The forest sighed again, and the air thickened, heavy with the weight of something just out of reach, an understanding, a connection that felt older than time. I remembered the legends my grandmother told, whispered in the flickering light of the hearth, about the forest as both guardian and predator. You have to listen to me. I cried, my breath coming heavy. We're not alone. But the words hung in the air, a futile echo. Lila was lost in her own world, and I stood at the precipice, teetering between her and the forest, our bond unraveling like the delicate tendrils of mist that curled around our feet. Suddenly, a rustle. A presence flitted at the edges of my senses, creeping in on us like a shadow. I turned, heart racing, breath caught in my throat. There, just out of sight, something shifted in the darkness, a fleeting glimpse of red, a flash of teeth. The forest transformed, the ground trembling beneath us, the trees leaning in closer, and I felt it, the pulse of the woods beating against my chest, urging me to run, to flee before the inevitable devoured us whole. Lila? I shouted, panic clawing at my throat, but my voice was lost in the cacophony of the whispers. The forest smelt of fear now, of decay, of something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. I took a step back, heart racing. We have to go. Now. But as I grasped her arm, pulling her to her feet, the ground beneath us shifted again, groaning under the weight of the secrets buried deep. The trees creaked, their branches clutching at the sky as if demanding answers that could never be spoken. And as I dragged Lila away, the smell of herbs and damp earth faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of foreboding. The forest loomed behind us, dark and brooding, the shadows twisting and curling, bearing witness to our retreat as the ground opened and closed behind us, swallowing the remnants of whatever bond we had once shared. I remembered, how could I forget, the stories, the lessons, the warnings that had echoed through time. But Lila was lost within her own dreams, and as we stumbled back toward the village, I felt that bond stretch, fray, and begin to unravel, a thread caught in the claws of the forest that whispered promises of power, knowledge, and darkness. With every step, the forest breathed, a living tapestry woven from secrets and shadows, reminding us that we were never truly free, forever caught in the lingering scent of damp earth, of herbs and wood, forever gathering what we could, only to find ourselves forever lost. The air crackled with tension, a thick fog of unspoken fears and anticipation rolling through the dimly lit chamber. I stood there, heart pounding, as the flickering torchlight cast dancing shadows on the walls, shadows that seemed to twist and writhe like the ghosts of the forgotten. The scent of incense mingled with something more visceral, something raw, stinging my nostrils and clawing at my throat. It was the unmistakable smell of death. "Do you think it will hurt?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely rising above the heavy silence. Her wide eyes glimmered with unshed tears, a storm of dread and hope swirling within. She was fragile, a porcelain figure crumbling at the edges, and yet, there was a fierce fire within her, a refusal to surrender. I wanted to reach out and hold her, but my hands were trembling, caught between the weight of our reality and the fleeting comfort of denial. "Not if we do it right," I murmured, but even I could hear the tremor in my voice. I remembered the stories, the tragic tales of those who had faltered, who had stumbled in their rituals, leaving chaos where there should have been peace. The burden of our task loomed over us like a tidal wave, and I could feel it rising, threatening to engulf everything in its path. Across the room, Marcus stood, his jaw clenched tight, eyes hardened. He was the one who had insisted on this, who had rallied us with his fervor, believing that this night would be our redemption. He held the ceremonial dagger, a glinting thing, both beautiful and terrible, reflecting the torchlight like a malevolent star. "We owe it to her," he said, voice steady but laced with urgency. "We owe it to Claire." Claire. Her name hung in the air, a ghostly echo that sent shivers through me. I remembered her laughter, bright and unfiltered, like the chime of a bell amid a somber dirge. She had been the glue that bound us, the light in our shadows. Now, she lay still, her spirit caught in a limbo we were desperate to escape. The preparation of the body was more than just a ritual, it was our last attempt to honor her, to tether her essence to this world one final time. I glanced at the small altar we had constructed, a makeshift shrine adorned with flowers that wilted under the weight of sorrow. Each petal seemed to whisper secrets of love and loss, a testament to the lives we had shared. There, nestled among the fading blooms, lay the offerings, tokens of our affection, each imbued with memories we clung to like lifebuoys in a stormy sea. A locket, a book, a faded photograph. They screamed a finality, of the inevitability of our task. "Are we ready?" Marcus asked, breaking the spell that held us captive. I wanted to scream, to tell him that readiness was a lie, that we were merely children playing at the edges of a dark abyss, but instead, I nodded. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, matching the rhythm of the clock on the wall, its relentless ticking a reminder that time was slipping through our fingers like grains of sand. The first step was always the hardest. I drew in a shaky breath, feeling the weight of every moment pressing down on me. I stepped forward, the ground seeming to hum beneath my feet, urging me onward. As I reached for Claire's lifeless form, the chill of her skin stole my breath away, a stark contrast to the warmth of the memories that enveloped me. My fingers trembled as I brushed a stray hair from her face, and I swallowed hard against the lump in my throat. I remembered the way she would smile, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief, and it felt as if the world had betrayed her, leaving nothing but this hollow shell behind. As we began the ritual, a strange energy enveloped the room. I whispered the incantations, my voice faltering but determined, while Marcus placed the dagger against her heart. It shimmered ominously, a harbinger of the release we sought. Sarah knelt beside me, her hands trembling, and I grasped hers tightly, feeling the pulse of her fear mingle with my own. Together, I urged, and she nodded, a single tear escaping down her cheek. It was a small thing, but in this moment, it felt monumental, a droplet in an ocean of despair. The air thickened, and the shadows deepened, as if the very walls were leaning in to witness our transgression. The words spilled from my lips, a rhythmic chant that felt both foreign and familiar. I could see Marcus's intensity deepening, the way his brows knitted together as he pressed the dagger deeper, almost reverently. Time became elastic, moments stretched into eternity as we danced on the edge of the abyss. "Claire," I breathed, my heart racing, "we honor you." A flash of movement, a flicker of light, was it her spirit, or merely a trick of the candlelight? The room seemed to pulse, as though it had a heartbeat of its own, echoing the weight of our devotion. The weight of our grief. And then suddenly, a sound, a low, guttural groan that sent a chill racing down my spine. The shadows shifted again, and the air turned electric, vibrating with a feral energy that made my skin crawl. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, her grip tightening around my fingers as panic flared in her eyes. "I don't know," I whispered, my pulse quickening. The atmosphere crackled, thickening with each heartbeat, each whispered prayer, and we were drowning in a torrent of fear and longing, a maelstrom that threatened to consume us whole. "Keep going," Marcus shouted, desperation lacing his voice. "We have to finish." And finish we would. The knife hovered, poised, hearts racing as we fell deeper into the ritual. With each word, each breath, the weight of Claire's absence pressed harder, reminding us that this was not merely an act, it was a reckoning, a return to the chaos of our lives, a desperate plea for the cosmic balance we had once enjoyed. Tension spiraled, a taut string stretched nearly to breaking, and I felt the universe shift beneath us. My mind flitted through memories, the laughter, the whispers, the shared dreams, and in that moment, I realized this wasn't just for Claire. This was for all of us. We were preparing not just her body, but our own souls for the reckoning ahead. As we chanted her name, the shadows writhed, the air thick with emotion, and everything around us trembled with unspoken promises. "Stay with us," I pleaded silently, feeling the weight of the world in every sigh. This wasn't just a farewell, it was an invocation, a connection that transcended the boundaries of life and death. And as the darkness closed in, I could feel it, an undeniable pull, a promise of something beyond, teasing the edges of my consciousness. I clutched to Sarah's hand, the warmth of her skin grounding me against the encroaching void. Together, we would brave whatever lay beyond this fragile moment, forging a bond that would last through the ages, even in the face of the most chilling unknown. The air shimmered, the shadows danced, and the final words echoed through the chamber, a haunting lullaby that would forever intertwine our fates. Whatever awaited us on the other side, we would face it together. Always together. The wind howled like a banshee, a mournful wail entwined with the acrid smoke rising from the pyre. I stood there, heart racing, as if the very air was charged with the weight of the moment. The scent, the unforgettable, gut-wrenching scent, was thick and cloying, mingling with the floral notes of the wildflowers that stubbornly clung to life in the crevices of the scorched earth. It was a symphony of death and defiance, a chaotic blend that clawed at my throat. I could feel it, the tension, like a taut wire ready to snap, and in that instant, I knew everything was about to change. I watched as Ilara's hands trembled, the flames casting shadows across her pale face. She was a tempest, fierce yet fragile, caught between worlds, one of vengeance and one of grief. I felt the urgency in her heart, the weight of 1,000 memories pressing down on her like a stone. I remembered her laughter, bright and wild as a summer storm, before life had shattered her into pieces. Now, vengeance danced in her eyes, a flickering flame that threatened to consume her. Beside her stood Kellen, his brow furrowed in anguish. He was a dreamer, a poet trapped in a world that demanded warriors. But today, the lines of his normally serene face were carved with doubt. "Ilara," he whispered, voice quaking, "this isn't the answer." His plea hung in the air, a delicate thread stretched taut between them, but she was beyond reason, lost in the storm of her loss. The pyre crackled, spitting embers like angry stars, and I could see the ghosts of their past swirling in the smoke, their shared laughter, the warmth of their friendship, and the shattering tragedy that had drawn them apart. The sky darkened, cloaking the valley in an eerie twilight, as if nature itself mourned. I felt the chill creep up my spine, the cold seep into my bones. It was more than just temperature, it was the weight of fate pressing down upon us. "I remember when we used to think we were invincible," Ilara said, her voice barely a whisper. "Before the world turned its back on us. The memories danced between us, fragile and haunting, like moths drawn to the flame." "Invincible," I echoed, tasting the word like ash on my tongue. It felt absurd and distant, a cruel joke played by time. The flames roared to life, and with it came an onslaught of heat that felt almost like an embrace, one that offered warmth but promised destruction. I watched as Ilara stepped closer, her silhouette framed by fire, the wind tousling her hair like the fingers of a long-lost lover. She was beautiful and broken, a warrior caught in the throes of her grief, and somewhere in that chaos, I felt the stirring of something primal within me. Time twisted and folded around us, memories colliding with the present, and suddenly, I was back in that moment by the river, the sun glistening on the water's surface, laughter echoing in the air. We were so naive, I thought, but in that naivete, there was a sweetness, an innocence that felt impossible now. "Kellen, what if we don't come back?" I had asked, fear clawing at my heart. He had smiled then, a bright, infectious grin that could chase away the shadows. "Come back? We'll conquer the world." But now, as the pyre crackled with life, I could feel the weight of our choices pressing down on us, suffocating us like the smoke billowing into the darkening sky. "They'll remember us," Ilara said, her voice steely. "They'll remember what they did to us." Kellen's gaze darted between her and the pyre, his heart torn between loyalty and love, like a tightrope walker balancing on a thin wire stretched above the abyss. The temperature dropped suddenly, the chill wrapping around us like a shroud, and I shivered, wondering if it was the climate, or if it was something deeper, something cosmic that echoed the turmoil within us. It was as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. "I remember the stars," I murmured, lost in the vastness of the moment. How we used to dream beneath them. But the stars were distant now, muted by the flames and the shadows that danced around us. "What do you smell?" Kellen's question sliced through the air, an unexpected intrusion into our spiraling thoughts. I inhaled deeply, the scent clinging to my lungs like a secret. Burnt wood, scorched earth, and something sweeter, like betrayal. I could see the flicker of realization cross Kellen's face as if he'd stumbled upon an ancient truth hidden beneath the ashes. The wind shifted, carrying with it the weight of unsaid words, of regrets like heavy stones lodged in our throats. I felt the tension mount, a crescendo of emotions building to a breaking point. Ilara's face was a mask of determination, but beneath it lay turmoil, a tempest brewing, threatening to spill over. "We can't let them win," she said, and I could hear the edge in her voice, see the way her hands clenched into fists. "Not after everything." "Everything," I echoed, and the word hung heavy between us, a reminder of all that had been lost. I watched as flames licked higher, twisting into the smoke, creating shapes that felt like ghosts reaching out to us, whispering the secrets we feared to confront. The scent of the pyre intensified, an intoxicating mix of despair and defiance. "Remember when we thought we could change the world?" Kellen asked, voice trembling, raw with emotion. "We were kids then." The wind howled again, a mournful lament that echoed through the valley, and I could feel the world spinning, caught in the grip of our choices. Ilara stepped closer to the pyre, the heat of it radiating against her skin, illuminating her fierce resolve. Suddenly, time fractured. I saw our past flash before me, a kaleidoscope of laughter intertwined with screams, dreams mingling with nightmares. And in that moment, I understood, this pyre would not simply burn, it would ignite something far greater. A reckoning. A legacy. A haunting scent that would linger long after the flames died down. As the fire danced, I closed my eyes, surrendering to the chaotic symphony of emotions coursing through me, fear, longing, rage, and something sweeter, something that whispered of hope. I could hear the heartbeat of the earth underneath us, the pulse of life and death intertwined, and I knew we were not just standing at the edge of a pyre, we were at the edge of something monumental, something that would shape our fate, whether we wanted it or not. And as the flames flickered, I braced myself for the storm, for the scent of the pyre would linger long after the ashes settled, a memory burned into the fabric of our souls, forever intertwining our fates in the tapestry of this unforgiving world. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and impending dread. In the flickering light of waning day, shadows danced eerily along the worn stone walls of the ancient crypt. A single torch sputtered, sending flickers of flame that ignited memories long buried. I could hear the frantic heartbeat of the earth, a relentless thrum that echoed my own trepidation. A chill crawled down my spine as I stood, paralyzed, at the threshold of the macabre ritual that would soon unfold. They were preparing for a sacrifice. Lena knelt, trembling, beside the altar, a rough-hewn slab stained with the echoes of countless lives lost. Her fingers brushed against the coarse fabric of a woolen cloth draped over the offering, a timid offering of a goat, bound and bleating softly. The creature's wide eyes mirrored the depth of her despair. She looked up at me, and in that moment, I saw the fear etched in her features, the anguish that twisted her lips into a quiver. This was not merely about death, it was a desperate plea for the mercy of the ancestors, a prayer woven into the very fabric of her being. "I remember the stories," she whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. "When the village elder spoke of the great ancestors, their shadows looming over us. They demand respect, but it's fear that drives us." Her gaze shifted, shadows flickering across her face as she glanced toward the entrance, where darkness pooled, hungry and waiting. Beside her, Eric stood, shoulders squared, yet his hands quivered as they gripped the knife, a jagged blade glinting cruelly in the torchlight. His brow furrowed, torn between duty and dread. The weight of expectation bore down on him, a relentless reminder of lineage and obligation. He was to lead the sacrifice, to spill blood in hopes of soothing restless spirits. but his heart was a tempest, raging against the confines of tradition. "I don't want to," he muttered, the words barely escaping his lips. "Not like this." The knife slipped slightly in his grip, a small yet seismic act of defiance. It was as if time itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash of will against fate. The goat bleated again, a sound that reverberated in the silent chamber, a harbinger of what was to come. I could see Lena's resolve slip, the flicker of an idea sparking in her mind, a desperate notion to defy the cruel hands of fate. "Eric," she breathed, urgency tinged with hope. "What if we don't? What if we let it go? What if?" But the words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The traditions of our forebears loomed larger than the flickering flame, a gaping maw of ancestral expectations threatening to swallow us whole. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, a reminder that we were mere mortals caught in the web of something far greater, far darker. As Eric's grip tightened around the knife, visions surged in my mind, dreams of ancestors beckoning from beyond the veil, their whispers echoing through the ages. I remember the stories my grandmother would tell, hushed and reverent, of the sacrifices made under the cloak of night, the blood spilled to appease the gods. But now, standing on the precipice of this rite, the tales felt more like chains than a legacy. "Lena," Eric's voice cracked, filled with the weight of his turmoil. "If we don't follow through, they'll turn their wrath on us. The village, my family, they'll suffer. I can't let that happen." His eyes burned with conviction, but I could see the cracks in his bravado, the flicker of uncertainty that betrayed his desperation. In that moment, I felt the air around us pulse with a life of its own, filled with a tension so thick it suffocated all reason. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing limbs, reaching out to pull us deeper into the abyss. I wanted to scream, to break the cycle of violence that had woven its way through generations, but the words caught in my throat, choked by fear and the weight of expectation. Lena's breath hitched, the reality of the moment crashing down like the weight of 1,000 souls. "What if we are the ones meant to change it?" she implored, her voice rising with a fierce determination that sparked in the dark. "What if we defy the darkness? What if?" But the shadows shifted, manifesting as a presence that loomed behind Eric. I felt it, a palpable chill, as if the very air conspired to suffocate our hopes. The ancestors were restless, their whispers a relentless cacophony that drowned out her words. It was a reminder that the past clung to us like a shroud, palpable and unyielding. Eric turned, the knife wavering in his grip, his gaze piercing through the veil of uncertainty. "But what if we fail?" The question hung between us, heavy and unavoidable. What if their wrath is worse than we can imagine? Silence enveloped us, a suffocating cloak of dread that echoed the heartbeat of the earth. I felt the weight of the night pressing down, every second stretching like a taut string ready to snap. The goat's bleating faded into the background, a distant memory overshadowed by the choices we faced. And then, in that moment of stillness, as the world held its breath, I remembered, a flicker of a story, a distant echo of another time when the sacrifice was not blood. I yearned to scream it, to let it spill forth and shatter the chains that bound us. But the darkness loomed, a gaping maw that swallowed everything in its path, reminding us of the thin line we tread between the past and a future unwritten. A sudden rush of wind swept through the crypt, extinguishing the flickering torch. Darkness enveloped us, a suffocating blanket of despair that clung to my skin. Heart pounding, desperately searching for a glimmer of light, I realized our story had not yet ended. The choice lay with us. Would we become the shadows, or would we carve a new path, even in the face of despair? The heart of the universe thudded in rhythm with our choices, waiting, watching, as we stood on the brink of the abyss, ready to either plunge into tradition or fight to create a light that could shatter the dark. The air crackles, thick with tension, as the flames leap hungrily, clawing at the night sky. Lila stands at the edge of the clearing, hands trembling, her heart drumming a frantic beat against her ribcage. She can smell the smoke, acrid and suffocating, curling into her lungs, and she wishes she could take it all back, the decisions that led her here, the whispered promises, the blood on her hands. The world around her spins in a blur of flickering shadows, twisting shapes that dance and mock, but all she can see is the pyre, towering and ominous, a monstrous sentinel awaiting its offering. In the distance, Marcus paces, his footsteps heavy with dread. He's always been the brave one, the protector, but tonight, he feels only the weight of his failures. It should have been me, he mutters, fists clenched, memories crashing over him like waves. He remembers laughter beneath starlit skies, the way Lila's eyes sparkled with mischief. But laughter feels like a ghost now, haunting him as he watches her draw closer to the fire. You don't have to do this, he pleads, voice breaking, but his words vanish into the night air, swallowed by the crackling blaze. What choice do I have? Lila's voice trembles, yet it carries the steel of resolve. She has always been the one to shoulder the weight of their sins, the one who made the hard decisions. Shadows flicker in the corners of her mind, fragments of laughter, betrayal, and pain. I can't let it take another one of us. The pyre pulses, a living entity, as if sensing her turmoil, and she feels its calling, its promise of release. Just beyond the trees, Ezra lurks, caught between two worlds. The boy who once believed in heroes now stands a witness to this tragedy, heart pounding like a war drum. He shudders at the sight of Lila and Marcus, their faces etched with despair, the flames illuminating their flaws. He remembers the fireflies they used to chase, capturing a glimpse of innocence now lost. You can't burn him. Ezra cries, stepping forward, his voice cracking like fragile glass. We can find another way. Another way. Lila's laughter is bitter, cutting through the night like a jagged knife. What other way is there, Ezra? We can't just let it go. It's a beast that needs to be tamed, and this is the only way to silence it. Her words hang heavy in the air, a promise steeped in desperation. Marcus steps closer, his brow furrowed, as he wrestles with the ghosts of their past. Lila, please. Remember the nights we spent planning our escape? You said you wanted to live, to be free. His voice is low, thick with the weight of their shared history, and it trembles like a dying flame. You're not free if you do this. You'll be just like it, consumed, trapped. The fire crackles louder, almost as if it's listening, waiting. Lila's breath catches, the heat clawing at her skin. If I don't do this, it will consume you. It will take everything, us, our memories, our dreams. She turns, her eyes fierce, aflame with determination. And I refuse to let that happen. Ezra looks at her, his heart breaking with each word. He sees the girl he once knew, the one who found beauty in the mundane, who loved the rain more than the sun. You don't have to carry this burden alone, he whispers, desperation pooling in his chest. We can face it together. Lila's resolve wavers, cracking under the weight of their shared history. The air thickens with memories, joyful whispers in shadowed corners, laughter echoing between the trees, the warmth of summer nights. But reality is merciless, and tonight, it demands sacrifice. You don't understand, she breathes, anguish spilling from her soul. This is the only way to stop it. If I don't do this, it will take you both. The flames dance wildly, casting monstrous shadows that twist and turn, creeping closer, hungry for the heat of fear. Marcus reaches out, his hand trembling. Then let it take me. I'd rather die than watch you burn. His voice is raw, filled with the pain of love and loss, and as he speaks, Lila's heart fractures, each piece echoing with the weight of a choice she never wanted to make. No. Her voice rises, slicing through the night. You don't get it. This isn't just about us anymore. The fire crackles, the air thick with tension, as she steps toward the pyre, her heart a steadily beating drum, each pulse screaming for salvation. It's about the others, the ones it's taken before us. I have to end this cycle. Ezra's breath hitches, and for a moment, time stands still. The world fades, leaving only the three of them entwined in this moment of despair. You're not a monster, he pleads, emotions tearing at his heart. You're a hero. Don't sacrifice yourself to a fire that only seeks to consume. But her gaze pierces through, firm and unyielding, and the shadows dance around them, whispering secrets of the past. In that heartbeat, the night sky looms above, a vast, endless void, filled with stars that shimmer like distant memories. I remember nights like this, with laughter echoing against the trees. I remember what it felt like to be whole. A gust of wind howls through the clearing, the flames roaring in response, and with it comes the weight of inevitability. As Lila takes another step toward the pyre, the air thickens with unspoken fears and dreams lost to the past. That haunting truth hangs in the air, each flickering flame a reminder of how close they are to obliteration. And yet, as she stands at the edge of her choice, she realizes this moment is not an end, but a beginning. The lines of fate blur, twisting and turning as she confronts the fire, her heart racing, the echoes of their lives intertwining with the flames. In the silence that follows, a new understanding ignites, a fierce determination to craft her destiny, to carve their place in a world that has tried to erase them. And as the pyre crackles, as shadows swirl and memories dance, the weight of their decisions hangs in the air like a shroud, binding them together in their shared fate, one that is both terrifying and beautifully tragic. The flames lick higher, hungry and relentless, and in that calamitous moment, they know this is not merely a choice, but a fight for their souls. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning oils and resins, a noxious sweetness that clung to the back of the throat like an uninvited guest. It was a cacophony of chaos, the crackling of flames licking hungrily at the wood, the shadows dancing wildly against the walls of the ancient stone chamber. The flicker of the fire illuminated the faces of 3 figures, each one caught in a moment of dread, a heartbeat away from catastrophe. I stood there, breathing heavily, heart racing, feeling the pulse of fear race beneath my skin. Cora, her eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears, was scrabbling at her wrist, trying to extinguish the flames that had caught the hem of her dress, the fabric igniting like a cruel joke. I remember the way she gasped, terrified, but her resolve was fierce, igniting a fire within me that mirrored the flames before us. "Help me," she screamed, a sound so raw, it clawed at the air, echoing off the walls like a tortured ghost. The urgency of her voice sliced through the smoke, desperation dripped from it like molten wax. I lunged forward, grasping the fabric of her dress, trying to smother the flames that threatened to consume her. Beside us, Merrick stood frozen, a statue carved from dread. His dark curls danced in the heat, each flicker of fire revealing the contours of his face twisted in horror. He had always been the strong one, the protector, but now, in this moment of truth, he was paralyzed by a fear that gnawed at him, deeper than any physical threat. "Cora, I can't," he stammered, his voice a mere whisper, trembling like the shadows that surrounded us. "Do something." I barked at him, and the moment stretched, taut as a bowstring, ready to snap. The tension hung heavy, a tangible force, I could almost feel it wrapping around us, squeezing, suffocating. Each second felt like an eternity as I wrestled with the fabric, pulling and twisting, my fingernails digging into the scorched fibers. Cora's screams morphed into choked gasps, and the flames danced dangerously close to her skin, licking at her legs with a ferocity that made bile rise in my throat. I could hear the crackle of fire, an angry voice in the chaos, roaring as it consumed. I remember thinking about how we had come to this moment, tangled in the tendrils of fate, bound by secrets and lies woven into the dark tapestry of our lives. "Why won't you move, Merrick?" I growled, my voice thick with the weight of betrayal lurking beneath the surface. "You're supposed to save her." But even in the heat of the moment, I felt a twist of guilt, for I knew that Merrick was fighting his own demons. Shadows clung to him, specters of past failures, of promises unfulfilled. He had watched too many people slip through his fingers, and now, faced with the prospect of losing Cora, he stood paralyzed, a battleground of emotion raging within him. The fire was a beast, snarling and snapping, its hungry maw threatening to consume everything it touched. I could feel the heat radiating off it, seeping into my skin, mingling with the sweat of desperation. "Cora, just hold on," I shouted, a mantra in the suffocating darkness. I could feel the edges of panic fraying around me, the very fabric of reality unraveling. Time seemed to stretch as I fought against the flames, my heart pounding a relentless rhythm, a war drum echoing in the chaos. And then, silence. The flames stilled, their roar reduced to a whisper, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. I felt the moment shift, an electric tension, the air crackling with unspoken words, the unshed tears hanging just above the surface. I glanced at Merrick, and in that fleeting second, I saw the flicker of resolve ignite in his eyes. With a suddenness that startled me, he leaped forward, moving as if possessed, the hesitation evaporating into the air like smoke. He grabbed a heavy blanket from the nearby chest, throwing it over Cora, enveloping her in a cocoon of fabric. I watched as he smothered the flames, but the real fire was in his eyes, determination, regret, a silent plea for redemption. Cora's breath came in ragged gasps, and beneath the blanket, I felt her pulse racing, a frantic melody that matched the chaos around us. "You're safe," Merrick murmured, his voice a soft balm against the harshness of the moment. But in that same breath, I felt the weight of fear settle over us, a shroud of darkness that clung to our hearts. As the remnants of the fire flickered out, the stench of burning oil and resin hung in the air, a reminder of what had almost been lost. The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in, echoing with the tension of unsaid words. I could see Cora's eyes darting between us, confusion mingling with gratitude, and I knew that this moment would haunt us. "Why didn't you help?" she whispered, the question hanging heavy in the air. It was a question that would linger, an unbearable weight pressing down upon us, a reminder of the fragility of life, the thin veneer of control we clung to in a world rife with chaos. And as we stood there, drenched in the aftermath of our confrontation, I felt time slip through my fingers like grains of sand, each moment steeped in the fragrance of burning oils and resins. It was a heady reminder of our mortality, a call to action that resonated deep within us. We were alive, but at what cost? With each heartbeat, I felt the tension uncoil, a promise of what was yet to come. The shadows shifted and twisted around us, whispering secrets held tight in the dark corners of our minds. Cora, Merrick, and I were poised on the precipice of something greater, something darker that awaited us just beyond the flames. The world outside beckoned, but we were caught in a delicate web of choices, each strand pulsing with the weight of what had been, and what could be. I could sense the tremors of an approaching storm, and with it, the intoxicating scent of burning oils and resins that lingered in the air, a haunting reminder that the fire had only just begun. The air was thick with a silence so heavy it felt like a shroud, each breath an echo of a life that had slipped away. Shadows danced in flickering candlelight, their movements like specters weaving between the living and the dead. I remember the way my heart pounded, a dull thud in my chest, as the mourners gathered, faces pallid, eyes hollow, drawn together by grief that bound them tighter than any chain. The mourners, each a ghost in their own way, formed a circle, a living testament to loss. I spotted Clara first, her fingers trembling on the strings of her violin, the instrument like an extension of her soul. The notes she played were a haunting lament, slicing through the air with a rawness that stung. She had always been an enigma, her laughter a balm, but now, as she poured her heart into that mournful tune, I saw the cracks, each note a confession of sorrow, deep enough to drown in. I remembered the time we danced under the stars, oblivious to the world, her laughter mingling with the wind. But now, the laughter was replaced by a deep, resonant ache that echoed through the chamber. Beside her stood Marcus, his face a canvas of grief. His hands, once steady as he strummed his lute, now trembled with unspent rage. The death of our friend had torn through him like a storm, leaving behind a fragile shell of the man he once was. With every pluck of the strings, he wore his agony like a badge, a fierce rebellion against the heartless nature of life. I watched him, my heart aching for the fury that flickered in his eyes, the way he fought against the darkness even as it threatened to swallow him whole. I remembered when we were boys, playing makeshift games in the streets, laughing carelessly. Did we ever imagine that joy could be so fleeting? The mourners shifted uneasily, their collective breath a sigh of disbelief, a refusal to accept the void left behind. I could feel the weight of their sorrow pressing against my chest, each heartbeat a reminder of the fragility of existence. The music swelled, a tempest of emotions crashing against the walls of our grief. It was a symphony of agony, beautiful yet gut-wrenching, each note a tear shed for the lost. The room was filled with a cacophony of memories, swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust. I could see glimpses of our shared past, nights spent beneath the stars, secrets whispered in the dark, dreams forged in the molten fires of youth. But now, those dreams lay abandoned, scattered like ashes in the wind. Was it foolish to hope? Was it too late to reclaim what we had lost? As Clara's melody rose, I felt a shift in the room, a palpable energy, a stirring of something ancient and powerful. The mourners leaned in, drawn closer by the haunting beauty that seemed to transcend the very fabric of reality. For a moment, it felt as if the boundaries between life and death blurred, the veil between the worlds thinning until I could almost see the silhouettes of those we had loved and lost hovering just beyond our reach. Marcus's voice broke through the heavy silence, a raw rasp like gravel scraping against glass. "This is not just a dirge," he shouted, his eyes aflame with intensity. "This is a battle cry. We will not let their memories fade into the darkness." Each word was a bolt of lightning, igniting the room with an energy that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I had seen him angry before, but this was different. This was grief transformed into a fierce, consuming fire. Clara's bow danced across the strings, weaving a tapestry of sound that enveloped us, pulling us deeper into the abyss of our sorrow. "But what if they forget?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, laced with a desperation that pierced through the music. "What if we forget?" She looked at me, and in that moment, I felt the weight of her gaze. It was a plea, a challenge, a flicker of hope amid the wreckage of our reality. I stepped forward, caught in the storm of emotion swirling around us. "Then we will remember," I shouted, my voice cracking under the strain. "We will carve their names in our hearts, and we will sing them into the night." The words erupted from my lips, a promise forged in the fires of our shared pain. The grief was suffocating, but there was something electric about our collective despair, an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of loss. The music soared, a wild crescendo that echoed through the very marrow of our bones. I could feel the pulse of the room, the rhythm of our heartbeats sinking together as we mourned in unison. It was as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for us to make sense of the chaos that surrounded us. The candle flames flickered wildly, casting shadows that danced upon the walls like memories come to life. The veil between the living and the dead was thin, and I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the whispers of forgotten dreams weaving through the sorrow. They were there, lingering just beyond the edges of comprehension, and I realized with a jolt that they were never truly gone. They lived on in us, in our shared pain, in the music that flowed like blood through our veins. As the final notes reverberated in the air, an eerie stillness settled, wrapping around us like a heavy cloak. The mourners stood in silence, their faces illuminated by the flickering light, each one a reflection of the pain we all carried. In that moment of quiet, I understood the role we played, the attendants of our grief, the musicians of our memories, the mourners of our past. Time stretched, and I felt the weight of eternity pressing against my chest as if the cosmos were watching, waiting for us to rise from the ashes of our sorrow. But the moment lingered, heavy with the promise of something yet to come, an unending cycle of remembrance and loss that would never truly cease. And as I looked at Clara and Marcus, I knew this was only the beginning. The music, the grief, the memories, they would seep into every corner of our lives, threading through our existence in ways we could hardly comprehend. It was a dark dance, a macabre yet beautiful reminder of what it meant to be human, to feel deeply, to live in the shadows of joy and despair. I could feel it in my bones, the haunting truth that life would continue to unfold, a tapestry of light and dark, love and loss, forever intertwined. The story was far from over, it was merely a note in the symphony, a breath in the endless song of existence. In that moment, the music faded, but the echoes remained, a haunting reminder that we would carry our memories into the night, and in doing so, we would never let them fade away. The wind howled like a banshee, a wild scream that rattled the very bones of those who dared to stand on the edge of the fjord. I could taste the salt of the sea on my lips, feel it bite at my skin, as I squinted against the icy spray. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a war drum. The sky was a bruised melancholy, heavy with the weight of impending storms. Somewhere in the distance, a horn blared, echoing over the icy waters, summoning warriors to prepare for battle, but all I could think about was the smell. The air was thick, an intoxicating blend of earthy peat, burning wood, and the unmistakable tang of iron, the scent of blood. My fingers curled into fists at my side. This was more than just a potent mix of aromas, it was a reminder of what was at stake. The land beneath my feet was soaked in the memories of those who had come before me, and their spirits lingered, whispering in the wind. I remember my father's words, "Smell the earth, and you will know its stories." Eric stood beside me, his breath visible in the frigid air. His eyes were dark, filled with conflicting emotions, a tempest swirling just below the surface. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was like thunder rumbling through the silence. The north smells of iron and death, but it also smells of life. A strange contradiction, isn't it? His laugh was a sharp bark, like a raven. It mirrored the haunting shadows of our shared past, where we learned the hard truths of survival. Life? What life, Eric? I shot back, the bitterness flooding my voice. We're standing on the verge of ruin, on the brink of a fate we cannot escape. My heart clenched as I recalled the warmth of my mother's embrace, the sweet scent of her hearth, the memories now tainted by the reality of our existence. The horizon darkened as a storm rolled in, a shroud of grey threatening to swallow us whole. Eric's jaw tightened. He understood this dance of despair. Memories of laughter on warm summer nights, the heady fragrance of wildflowers blooming in the meadows, were now ghosts. The scent of smoke and ash filled the air, replacing those innocent joys. The north was unforgiving, and we were but pawns in a game played by gods too distant to hear our cries. Let's not forget the south, either, he said, pulling my attention. It smells of honey and fresh bread, of sun-warmed skin. There was a wistfulness in his voice as if he could almost taste it, the sweet nectar of life blooming in lands far from our own. The south was a place filled with laughter, where the air wrapped around you like velvet. But we are not there. We are here, with the ghosts of our ancestors. My mind twisted back to the south, where rivers flowed with blood and the scent of betrayal painted the landscape red. The Viking men and women of the south fought fiercely, but I had seen their vulnerability just as easily as I had felt my own. I remembered a boy who had laughed like the wind, yet whose eyes darkened with the weight of his wounds. The south smelled of life, yes, but it also carried the fetid odor of despair. Eric and I shared a moment of silence, the air growing heavy with unspoken thoughts. I could see it in him, the fear, the ache for what we had lost, the longing for something more than just survival. We had become echoes of our former selves, shaped by the unforgiving land. But just as the north held its haunting stench, it also held promise. Do you hear that? Eric's voice cut through the tension, barely a whisper. Before I could answer, a roar erupted from the mouth of the fjord, a creature of the depths answering the call of the storm. My heart raced as the thunder mingled with the crashing waves, sending shivers down my spine. It was a sound deeply primal, shaking the very core of my being. In that moment, we were not just warriors, we were children, lost in a world that had forgotten how to embrace us. Remember the Valley of Flowers? I asked, my voice breaking. Remember how it smelled when the sun kissed the earth? Of course. Eric's gaze softened, and I felt the tremor of shared memories, the sweetness of a summer day, the heady scent of blossoms mingling with the cool breeze. But it's gone now, buried under the weight of time. I took a step toward the edge, my heart pounding in my ears like a war drum, urging me to leap into the abyss, to escape the suffocating reality. We can't forget, Eric. We must remember the scents, the laughter, the warmth. They're all we have left. The wind whipped around us, a wild beast, carrying with it the scent of the sea, of death, and of life. It was a reminder of the constant cycle, a harsh teacher, showing us that from decay, new things could emerge. But the taste of iron lingered, a bitter reminder of the battles yet to come. Remember the stories, Eric said softly. The way the fire flickered, the shadows danced, the way we felt alive. Yes, I remembered. I remembered the warmth of the hearth, the laughter shared over mead, the echo of our ancestors whispering to us through the ages. They had fought so that we might stand here, longing for the scent of honey and wildflowers. As the thunder crashed above us, a flurry of emotions cocooned me. Fear, despair, hope, all twisted together in a furious storm. I turned to Eric, our eyes locking, two souls caught in the whirlwind of history. We will honor them, Eric. We will take these smells, these memories, into battle. We will carry them with us. And as the storm raged overhead, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me, a flame that could not be extinguished. The unique smells of our regions, each one an echo of the past, held the power to propel us forward into the unknown. The scent of loss would lead us to the scent of triumph. And so, we stood at the edge of the world, where the land met the sea, where the past intertwined with the future. the air thick with the scent of iron, blood, and the promise of life. We would face whatever came, our hearts intertwined like the roots of ancient trees, and we would rise, stronger than the storm. In that moment, the horizon whispered secrets, and I knew that this was not the end, but merely a beginning, a cycle yet to unfold. The air was thick, a suffocating blanket of unease, as Clara stood at the edge of the burial mound, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. She could taste the damp earth, the metallic tang of impending rain mixing with the smell of decay. Memories rushed back, fragments of laughter and sunlight, but here, in the shadow of the mound, there was only darkness. A chill sliced through her, calling forth an image of her brother, Jacob, who had once dared to climb the mound, only to disappear into its depths for what felt like an eternity. "I remember," she whispered to herself, the words pouring from her lips like a prayer. "I remember the way he laughed. I remember when he said he'd be back before the sun set. I remember," yet here she stood, the sun relinquishing its grip on the day, leaving only the oppressive silence. Beside her, Marcus, her childhood friend and longtime confidant, shifted nervously. His fingers fidgeted, picking at the frayed hem of his shirt, as if trying to erase the memory of their own childhood. Clara hadn't seen him in years, but the scars of their youth lingered like a ghost, haunting the very air they breathed. He had always been the brave one, the one who dared to chase down the shadows, but now he hesitated, a storm brewing behind his dark eyes. "What if," he began, voice trembling, "what if we can't smell what they left behind?" His cheeks flushed, and Clara could see the conflict waging within him, a battlefield of fear and curiosity. "What if they're still here, Clara?" "I don't want to think about that," she replied, her voice barely escaping her throat. The thought of Jacob lingering, trapped between worlds, made her insides twist. "I just want to know what happened." The burial mound loomed, an ancient sentinel watching over them with its unyielding silence. It was more than a tomb, it was a monument to the unspoken, a conundrum of life and death swirling around the stench of forgotten memories. The air pulsated with the weight of history, as if the mound held its breath, daring them to disturb its eternal slumber. "I remember the smell," Clara said, heart racing. "When we were kids, playing near the mounds, the way the earth smelled raw and real, like something alive was buried deep," she faltered, the image of their carefree days flickering before her like a dying flame. "But this smell, it's different. It's wrong." Suddenly, the wind howled, a mournful wail that echoed through the trees, sending shivers racing down her spine. Clara's hand instinctively reached for Marcus. He squeezed back, a silent promise, a tether in the storm. They were in this together, two souls bound by the weight of their pasts and the ghosts that lingered, waiting, watching. Let's just go," Marcus suggested, but his voice cracked under the pressure of his own fear. "We don't need to know what's there." But Clara shook her head, a fierce determination igniting in her chest. "No. We have to know. We can't let it end like this." With that, she stepped forward, drawn to the burial mound like a moth to a flame, feeling its pull in her bones. Each step felt heavy, the earth beneath her feet whispering secrets, warnings, pleading for her to turn back. And yet, she pressed on, driven by an insatiable need to uncover the truth, to confront the specters of her past. "Do you smell that?" Marcus's voice trembled as they approached, his eyes wide with fear. It's rancid. Like something's rotting. It shouldn't smell like this." "I remember," Clara's breath hitched in her throat. "I remember when Jacob went in there, how he laughed before he climbed. It was all a joke to him," but the words tangled in her mind, a web of regret and longing. "What if he never came back? What if something is still in there?" Marcus hesitated. "Clara, just come with me," she urged, her voice breaking. "Don't leave me alone." The wind howled again, a cacophony of despair. Clara felt the pressure of time wrapping around them, squeezing tighter, each heartbeat echoing like a drumbeat of fate. As they stood before the gaping maw of the mound, the earth seemed to tremble beneath them, as if it too were alive, holding its breath in anticipation. "Maybe we shouldn't," Marcus began, but the words died on his lips as Clara stepped closer, drawn by an unseen force. She could feel the pulse of the earth, the heartbeat of the mound resonating through her feet, urging her to listen, to dive deep into the darkness and confront the past. "I remember," she murmured, inching closer to the mouth of the mound. "I remember the stories they told. The way the ground would hum with life, even as it swallowed the dead." The air grew thick, and she felt it, a shift, a presence lurking just beneath the surface of her perception. The smell intensified, a putrid stench laced with something sweetly grotesque, memories entwined with the essence of loss. "Clara!" Marcus's voice broke through the haze, fierce and desperate, pulling her back from the brink. "We can't go in there." But she was already gone, entranced by the shadows that beckoned her closer. The mound whispered secrets, calling her name, wrapping around her heart like a vice. She couldn't turn away, she wouldn't. "I remember," she gasped, as the darkness enveloped her, "I remember what it means to be alive." And in that moment, time froze, the past and present colliding in a whirlwind of emotion, pain, fear, longing. A crescendo that threatened to shatter her very being. As she peered into the abyss, something stirred inside the mound, a ghost of memory, a fleeting glimpse of Jacob, his laughter echoing through the void. But it was laced with something hollow, something that made her blood run cold. The mound held its secrets, and Clara was ready to face them, even as the shadows danced and the air thickened with dread. She felt Marcus's hand slip from hers, the pull of his fear too strong. "Clara, please," his voice was a fading whisper as she stepped further into the dark, the weight of the world falling away, leaving only her heartbeat and the specters of her past. Nothing could prepare them for what lay ahead, for the impact of the burial mound on their very souls, where odor and memory intertwined, shaping their destinies and rewriting their stories in the most visceral way possible. The moment hung in the balance, a breath held, a pulse quickening, drawing them deeper into the heart of the unknown. The air was electric, a living thing, crackling with salt and fury as the storm rolled in, twisting the sea into a maelstrom of chaos. I stood on the crumbling pier, my heart pounding like the surf below, as wind whipped through my hair, each gust a scream laced with the cries of ghosts long gone. It was as though the ocean itself was warning me. I remember the whispers of the waves, secrets carried ashore, each one a reminder that the sea gives and the sea takes. I clutched the splintered rail, the wood rough against my palm, a lifeline to a world that felt like it was slipping away. I turned to Nora, her face pale, eyes wide with terror, the reflection of the churning water mirrored in their depths. "This wasn't how it was supposed to be," she gasped, her breath coming in frantic bursts, as if the air itself was a thief, stealing her composure. "None of it was supposed to be like this," I shot back, the bitter taste of salt and regret staining my words. The storm raged on, and I could see it in her eyes, the fear that had rooted itself there, a heavy anchor. Nora had always been the dreamer, the one who saw the world not just for what it was, but for what it could be. Now, that dream was threatened by the very ocean that had once inspired her. I remember when we would sit on these very stones, our laughter mingling with the gentle lapping of the waves, imagining a future unblemished by darkness. But now, the horizon was a bruised shade of grey, ominous and foreboding, as if the sky had taken a cue from our lives. "What do we do?" Nora asked, her voice a mere whisper, lost in the cacophony of the storm. "Fight," I replied, though the word felt foreign on my tongue, a rebellion against the tide. I looked to the sea, its surface dancing like 1,000 souls possessed, each wave a reminder of our own battles, and I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. The salt air clung to my skin, a reminder of the past, of memories that felt both far away and achingly close. But it wasn't just the storm that raged within me. It was a confrontation of something deeper, a reckoning. I could see Dimitri, his silhouette etched against the backdrop of dark clouds, a storm of his own brewing in his chest. He had once been our anchor, the voice of reason, but now he was unraveling, the weight of his own demons dragging him down like an anchor to the abyss. "We can't just stand here, waiting for the tide to swallow us whole," he spat, anger and fear intertwining in his voice, a tempest as fierce as the one before us. "Then what do you propose?" I shot back, the desperation in my tone cutting through the air like a knife. "You want to fight the sea." But deep down, I felt the same fury ignite in my veins, the desire to wrestle with the waves, to wrestle with the very chaos of our lives. Dimitri turned away, jaw clenched, his silence speaking volumes. I could sense the turmoil within him, like a ship lost in the fog, navigating uncharted waters. The ocean had consumed so much of him already, and I feared it would take more. "You don't understand," he whispered, voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. "It's not just the sea. It's everything. It's us." I could feel the weight of his words settling heavily in the air, thickening the atmosphere like a fog that wouldn't lift. Each heartbeat echoed the unspoken truths between us, the betrayals, the unfulfilled promises. I had once thought we could conquer anything together, but the salt of the air now tasted bitter, as if it had absorbed our doubts and fears. Nora stepped closer, her voice trembling. "We have to decide, right now. Are we going to let this drown us?" The question hung in the air, heavy like the storm itself, a challenge that resonated deep within me. I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, battling against the shadows of despair, a small flame struggling against the darkness. I remember, I started, but the memories flooded in too quickly. The laughter, the dreams, the moments when the sea was not our enemy but our muse. Each recollection was a wave crashing against the shore of my mind, pulling me in, dragging me under. I remember when we believed we could change our fate, when the sea was a canvas for our dreams. The wind howled, drowning out my voice, and I felt the tears mix with the rain on my cheeks. I wasn't ready for this confrontation, this reckoning. We weren't just battling the ocean, we were grappling with our own insecurities, our pasts, the choices that had led us here. Dimitri was haunted not just by the violence of the waves but by the ghosts of his own making. "Look at us," he said, voice breaking against the storm. "We're drowning in our own fears." As the lightning split the sky, illuminating the darkness for a split second, I saw it, the choice we had to make. It was a moment suspended in time, a heartbeat where everything could change. I locked eyes with Nora and Dimitri, a silent agreement passing between us, a recognition of the battle we were about to face, not just against the storm, but against ourselves. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the power of the sea calling us into its fury, but more than that, it was a call to arms, a rallying cry that echoed through the depths of my soul. In that fleeting moment, I could feel the weight of the salt air pressing down on us, sharpening our resolve. We wouldn't be defined by fear. We would rise, together, against the tide, against the darkness. With the storm at our backs and the salt air filling our lungs, we dared to step forward, hearts beating in unison, a fragile but unyielding alliance forged in the eye of chaos. And as I plunged into the tempest, I didn't look back. The wind howled through the skeletal remains of what was once home, a chilling lamentation that whispered secrets of lives lost and dreams shattered. I stood in the rubble, heart racing, feeling the weight of a world that had unraveled like an old tapestry. Each breath filled my lungs with the acrid scent of decay, a reminder that survival was a cruel mistress, one that demanded sacrifice, rations of hope carved from the flesh of despair. I remember the first time I saw him, Jack, silhouetted against the dying light, a ghost in the twilight. His eyes, sharp and hollow, darted around, scanning for anything that could prolong our existence another day. He wore grief like a second skin, thick and palpable, the edges frayed from too many sleepless nights. "There's nothing left," he muttered, voice strained, barely above a whisper. I didn't respond, words felt weightless here, each syllable a luxury we could no longer afford. Then there was Lisa, always lingering by the shadows, her laughter a distant memory echoing through the silence. She was a paradox, strength wrapped in fragility. I could see it in her hands, calloused yet delicate, as she rummaged through the debris. "You have to find something, anything," she urged, her voice cracking, desperation threading through the air like a taut wire ready to snap. I wanted to comfort her, tell her it would be all right, but those words felt like ashes on my tongue. In this twisted landscape, scavenging had become both art and survival. We turned over fragments of lives once lived, sifting through memories tangled in rust and dust. I found a doll, its porcelain face chipped and eyes clouded. I grasped it tightly, trying to recall the innocence that once filled these streets. I remember the laughter of children, their voices ringing like bells. Now, they were mere echoes haunting my thoughts, specters of a past swallowed whole by the darkness. "Look!" Jack's voice cut through my reverie, sharp and urgent as a knife. He had unearthed a rusted can, its contents unknown but tantalizing. We gathered around like moths to a flickering flame, hearts pounding in unison, a chorus of hope against the backdrop of despair. What was it? Could it be food? A sliver of nourishment to stave off the gnawing hunger that had become our constant companion. But hope was a fickle friend. As he pried it open, the stench of rot seeped out, a foul reminder that not all treasures shine. Lisa turned away, her face pale, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This is all we're left with," she said, her voice barely rising above a whisper. The realization hung heavy in the air, a thick fog of despair. We were scavengers now, picking through the bones of a world that had once thrived, and yet still, I could hear it, the heartbeat of something more, something lying just beneath the surface. A glimmer of movement captured my attention, a dark shape darting between the shadows. I froze, adrenaline coursing through my veins, heart pounding a frantic rhythm. Jack tensed, muscles coiling like a spring. "What was that?" he hissed, eyes wide, fear eclipsing the hunger. We weren't alone. The city had become a predator, and we were merely prey. The shadows danced menacingly, coalescing into a figure that emerged with terrifying clarity. I recognized him instantly, Marcus, once alive with laughter and dreams, now a hollow shell of his former self. "Help me," he rasped, voice breaking like brittle glass. He was a remnant of our past, a ghost trapped in the decay, I sunken but burning with a strange fierceness. "What happened to you?" I asked, incredulity mingling with fear. His body was a canvas of bruises and cuts, an unsettling mural of suffering. "I thought you were dead." The words escaped me before I could hold them back, and I regretted them immediately. Who was I to question the horrors that had stitched themselves into the fabric of our existence? "Not yet," he croaked, a bitter smile curling his lips. "But I can feel it, death is always lurking, just out of sight." Jack stepped closer, the tension thick as molasses, but Marcus's gaze flicked to Lisa, and suddenly the air shifted. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice urgent, pleading. "They're coming." The unspoken truth hung between us, heavy and oppressive. We were not just scavenging for food, we were searching for a way to outrun the inevitable. I felt it then, the suffocating weight of time pressing down, the specter of our own mortality creeping ever closer. We were all ghosts now, trapped in a liminal space where life and death blurred, where every decision felt like a final reckoning. "I remember when we used to think we were invincible," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And now this." She gestured to the remnants of our world, the crumbling facades, the echoes of laughter replaced by silence. Each word cut deep, a reminder of the dreams we had sacrificed on the altar of survival. "Invincible," I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. I wanted to laugh, to drown the despair in absurdity, but even that felt too heavy. The laughter had long since eroded away, replaced by a hollow ache that resonated in my bones. The shadows stretched and danced, taunting us, mocking our sorrow. Then, there it was, a rustle, the faintest sound that sent chills racing down my spine. Something was coming, something that thrived in the decay, hungry for flesh and fear. Our hearts beat as one, rapid and erratic, a primal rhythm that echoed in the silence. We were no longer just scavengers, we had become the hunted. Jack's hand clenched mine, squeezing like a vice. "We have to move, now." Fear laced his words, and I could see it in his eyes, the desperation that mirrored my own. We were bound by this moment, this shared terror, our lives crashing together like waves against the shore. But as we turned to flee, I caught one last glance at Marcus, his figure fading into the shadows, an unresolved question hanging in the air. What had we become? What had we lost in this relentless pursuit of survival? And the answer echoed back at me, a cacophony of heartbeats, memories, and shadows, a reminder that the aftermath was just beginning. The world around us shifted, and as we plunged into the night, the darkness curled around us, wrapping tighter with each passing moment, leaving only uncertainty in its wake. A shard of scent hangs heavy in the air, thick as fog, swirling memories that cling to the walls like shadows in a forgotten alley. I find myself in that moment, crouched in the mud of a long-buried site, my hands trembling as they brush against the cold earth. There's a pulse here, a heartbeat of ancient lives, and the smell, oh, God, the smell, it's visceral. It's not just decay, it's a time capsule of sorrow, joy, and desperation bottled in the fabric of history. It wraps around me, suffocating, exhilarating, whispering secrets I can't quite grasp. I remember Clara, her laughter bright enough to shatter the weight of silence, but now it's lost, echoing only in the recesses of my mind like a forgotten song. She couldn't stand the smell of the dig, said it reminded her of her father's old workshop, the rancid oil mixed with the sweet rot of wood succumbing to time. It's just dirt, she'd say, wrinkling her nose. But dirt is never just dirt, it's a tapestry woven with the threads of lives lived and lost. I see her now, standing beside me, the sun breaking through clouds just enough to catch the gold in her hair. But that light fades, replaced by the shadows creeping in, bringing the chill of something unnameable. I keep digging, fingers clawing at the earth like a ravenous beast, hungry for the stories hidden beneath the surface. The textures shift, hard, cold stone, soft loam, the brittle remnants of what once was. And that smell, yeast, iron, the sweet tang of rot mingling with the unmistakable odor of human despair. It tells me, here were lives that mattered. Here were dreams and nightmares threaded together in a bundle that time forgot. And then there's James, standing a few feet away, his brow furrowed with the weight of the past. He's always been the skeptic, the one who rolls his eyes at my frantic enthusiasm. It's not magic, Emma, he says, his voice cutting through the thick air as he uncovers a bone, fragile as glass yet heavy with a story unwilling to be told. It's just death. I want to scream, no. It's so much more. But the words stick in my throat, heavy with unspoken truths. The bone glistens in the muted light, beckoning. I wipe my dirty hands on my jeans and approach him, not wanting to break the fragile moment, this communion with the dead. I want to reach out, to touch, but fear holds me back. The moment stretches, a taut wire ready to snap. I remember the first time we touched, the electricity between us sparking like fireflies in twilight, a moment stolen from the chaos of the world. But now, his expression is distant, as if he's already buried in the past, far beyond my reach. The air grows thicker, the smell more potent, and I imagine the forgotten souls rising around us, watching, waiting. What do you think they were like? I ask, trying to bridge the chasm that yawns between us. The ones who lived here. James tilts his head, the tension in his jaw tightening. Does it matter? He doesn't look at me. Instead, his eyes are fixed on the bone, on the history it holds captive. They're dead. Whatever they were doesn't matter anymore. His words pierce me, sharp as the jagged edge of the bone. I want to scream, to shake him out of his apathy. The smell, its suffocating embrace, clings tighter, a reminder of how fragile we are, how fleeting. I want to tell him that history is a heartbeat, a pulse that runs through every living being, connecting us all in ways we can't see. But the moment eludes me, slipping through my fingers like smoke. I step closer, inches from him, and suddenly the air shifts. The smell grows stronger, twisting around us, coiling into something tangible, something alive. My heart races as I feel the presence of the past, thick and palpable. The sky darkens, and the shadows stretch longer, echoing the tension that hangs between us, a silent scream, a desperate plea for understanding. I want him to see it, to feel it, the weight of every life laid beneath our feet. But he is a fortress, impenetrable, and I am left adrift, lost in a tempest of emotion. The ground quakes beneath us, and I stumble back, my hands clawing at the earth as the bones cry out, a cacophony of voices rising from the depths. I hear Clara's laughter again, echoing through the darkness, twisted into a haunting melody. What are you afraid of? I can almost see her face, lit by the dim glow of lantern light, her eyes shimmering with mischief. You think they're gone? They're here, Emma. They're always here. I shudder, the truth striking me with the force of 1,000 memories, fading echoes of laughter, tears, and the weight of regrets unspoken. I see flashes of their lives, moments caught like fireflies in a jar, flickering and fading. I can almost reach out, feel their presence brushing against my skin, urging me to remember the warmth of love, the sting of betrayal, the beauty of fleeting moments. James stands frozen, his expression shifting. I see it, the crack in his armor, the glimmer of recognition sparking beneath layers of skepticism. The smell thickens, an intoxicating blend of life and death, of dreams unfulfilled. The air hums with tension, and I can feel the weight of their stories pressing down on us, urging us to listen. Suddenly, a whisper slides through the air, a ghostly presence brushing against my cheek. Help us, it's a plea, a cry from the depths, and I feel myself drawn deeper into the abyss. My heart races, the weight of the past crashing over me like waves against a rocky shore, relentless and unforgiving. Emma! James's voice pulls me back, raw and urgent. What's happening? I turn to him, desperation flooding my veins. They want us to remember. But as the shadows swirl, I see doubt in his eyes, and the moment slips away like a lost dream. The air is electric, charged with something ancient and powerful. I want to scream, to laugh, to cry, but instead, I stand frozen, caught in a whirlwind of emotion, the past spinning around us like a cyclone. And then, in that charged silence, the ground trembles again, and I know this is only the beginning of something darker, something that will pull us both under, pull us into the depths of history, into the ghosts that haunt our every step. The air grows heavy with unspoken truths, and I can feel the weight of the world pressing down upon us, urging us to confront the darkness lurking just beyond the veil. But for now, we stand amidst the remnants of lives long gone, gripped by the scent of memories, caught between the past and the present, where every heartbeat echoes with the promise of what's to come. The air crackled with tension as the flames leapt hungrily from the pyre, devouring the wooden ship that held a fallen warrior. I stood there, heart racing, caught in a moment where silence seemed to stretch like an eternity. The sky was a bruise of purple and grey, clouds swirling ominously above the flickering fire, while the scent of smoke clawed at my throat. I could hear the mournful wails of the women, echoing like ghosts in the night, a symphony of sorrow. They were not just mourning a life lost but an entire world that had slipped away, one fiery arrow at a time. I remember the way Brenna clutched her sister's hand, knuckles white with grief, her face a mask of despair. She had always been the brave one, the one who would leap into battle without a second thought, yet here she was, crumbling like ash under the weight of her brother's absence. She had always painted her dreams in bold strokes, never knowing the fragility that lay beneath. He deserves this, she whispered, voice trembling, but I could hear the tremor of doubt gnawing at her resolve. Would a flame really honor him, or was it just a cruel joke played by fate? Beside her, Olaf stood tall, a pillar of stoicism. His hands were clasped tightly behind his back, fingers digging into his palms, yet his eyes betrayed him, those stormy seas roiling with sorrow. He had promised to protect her brother, to bring him back home, but the battle had taken him far from the shores of their childhood. I could see it etched in the lines of his face, the guilt that gnawed at him like a relentless wolf. He would never speak of it, never let the words escape his lips, but those unspoken vows hung heavy in the air, like the thick mist that clung to the fjords. We're sending him off to Valhalla, he said, as if that mere statement would somehow lighten the burden on his heart. Yet, I thought of the Viking funerals, the way they cast their dead adrift into the night, a defiance against mortality that echoed through history. A ship aflame, sailing into the abyss, a warrior's final ride. But what of those left behind? What of the emptiness that swelled in their chests, like a black hole sucking in all light? It must be beautiful, Brenna had said to me once, a wistful smile dancing on her lips. To leave this world like a star, blazing across the sky. But in that moment, as the flames licked higher, I felt the truth of it, the beauty was eclipsed by the raw agony of loss. The Viking tradition was wild and reckless, a celebration draped in tragedy, a paradox that left you gasping for breath as you tried to reconcile the two. They believed in an afterlife of glory, of feasting and fighting, but what about those who remained? How did you reconcile the fire that consumed your loved one with the cold, hard ground that they would never walk upon again? I could see it in Brenna's eyes, a flicker of rage sparking against the backdrop of sorrow. She wanted to scream, to rage against the gods who had dealt her this cruel blow. But then, my thoughts drifted, and I couldn't help but compare this to the Christian burials I had witnessed, the soft whispers, the gentle placement of flowers, the serene acceptance of fate. Bodies wrapped in white linen, lowered into the earth with reverence, as if they were simply resting, preparing for another journey. A stark contrast, isn't it? No flames, just quietude, but still, a pain that echoed through the hearts of those left behind. He's in a better place, they would say, as if mere words could tether that soul to this world. But how much better is it when the grief still gnaws at you, an indelible mark on your heart? The sky darkened, the flames casting ghostly shadows that danced like phantoms, flickering against the trees. I remember the laughter, Brenna suddenly blurted out, her voice breaking. I remember how he would throw rocks at the lake, trying to make the biggest splash. Her eyes brimmed with tears, yet a smile flickered across her face like a dying ember, the memory a bittersweet balm against the fresh wound. He loved the water. Do you think he's splashing now? The question hung in the air, fragile as glass, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down upon us. Olaf turned to her, pain etched in the lines of his brow. He would want us to remember him laughing, not like this. But deep down, they both knew, laughter felt impossibly far away, a haunting melody that echoed in the recesses of their minds. I could feel the tension between them, a taut string ready to snap. Would they find solace in memories or lose themselves in the shadows of regret? The flames roared higher, and a shiver ran down my spine. I glanced back at the ship. It was a vessel of hope and despair, a contradiction in every sense. It was a Viking's way to honor their dead, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of unease, the gnawing thought that perhaps death wasn't something to be celebrated, perhaps it was to be mourned in silence, in the stillness of a grave. I felt my heart racing, the weight of history pressing down on me, an oppressive force. Brenna's laugh danced through the air, a ghostly echo tainted with sorrow. You know, she said, her voice trembling, they say the fire carries our loved ones to Valhalla. But what if it's a lie? What if they just disappear? The vulnerability in her words cut through me, raw and unfiltered. I could see the way Olaf's jaw tightened, the way he fought against the tide of despair threatening to pull him under. We have to believe, he replied, but even as he said it, I could see the cracks forming, an avalanche of doubt threatening to engulf him. And as the flames reached their climax, illuminating the darkness with an unholy glow, I felt the world around us shift, the boundary between life and death blurring into a haunting dance. I could almost hear the whispers of the ancestors, feel the weight of their gazes upon us, urging us to confront the depths of our own humanity. In that moment, the Viking funeral morphed into something more profound, a reflection of our own fear, our own suffering. As the last of the flames flickered and died, a chilling silence enveloped the scene. It was over, yet it felt like everything had just begun. Would Brenna find peace? Would Olaf ever forgive himself? The unanswered questions hung in the air, heavy with despair, an unbroken thread weaving through the fabric of our existence. I stood in that silence, knowing that the true journey was not in the flames or the ship, but in the hearts left behind, grappling with the echoes of those we've lost and the shadows of who we might become. Chapter 19. Modern interpretations of Viking funeral smells. The night was thick with the scent of smoke and something more visceral, something ancient, and it clung to the air like regret. I stood on the edge of the dock, the water a black mirror reflecting the dismal sky, waiting for the flickering torchlight to illuminate the figures around me. I could feel the weight of their expectations, the murmur of whispered blessings and unspoken fears. This was not simply a send-off, it was a confrontation with the echoes of history, a reflection of who we were and what we had lost. I could hear Loki's laughter in the wind, mocking our attempts to honor the dead while we grappled with our own mortality. Then there was Soren. His fists clenched as he stared into the abyss of the water, his mind a battlefield of memories and doubts. I had seen him laugh many times, but tonight, he was as solemn as Odin himself, wrestling demons that had no face. It's just a ceremony, he had told me earlier, but the tremble in his voice betrayed him. I watched his breath fog in the cold air, each exhalation a small offering to the spirits of the departed. What if they don't want this? He asked me, his eyes wild and searching. What if this isn't enough? What was enough, anyway? The Viking funerals portrayed in tales were epic, heroic, the kind that made you want to raise a sword and shout to Valhalla. But we were not warriors, we were children of a different age, battling our own ghosts in a world that had forgotten how to honor the dead. I could see the flickering flames in Soren's eyes, barely contained, ready to rage against the very act we were about to perform. But the world around us, the city, the lights, the mundane hum of modernity, seemed to mock our intentions. Then there was Livia, her silhouette etched against the flames. She held the torch with trembling hands, the light dancing across her face, revealing the deep lines of sorrow etched upon her features. "Are we fools, Soren?" she whispered, the question hanging heavy between us. "Do we believe in this?" Her voice, a fragile thread, carried the weight of 1,000 unfulfilled promises. I had watched her lose pieces of herself over the years, each loss a small cut that bled her spirit dry. This ceremony was not simply a farewell, it was her reckoning. "We are not fools," I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat, swallowed by the cold night. I remember the first time I smelled death. It was bitter and sharp, like burned earth after a long drought. It clung to my clothes, infiltrated my dreams, a phantom that refused to fade. And so, here we were, 3 souls adrift in a world that had pushed aside the rituals of the past. The Viking funeral, I had read, was a blazing farewell, a testament to life, a celebration of the warrior's journey. But as they say, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And I was terrified that this, too, would become another abandoned plan. I looked over at Soren, his eyes now glistening with unshed tears, and I felt the panic rising in my chest. "We're all going to be ghosts one day," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of it all. His gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, we understood, we were already haunted. By our choices, our regrets, the things we never said. This funeral was not merely for those who had passed, it was a reckoning for us all. The flames leapt higher, licking the sky, and I caught a whiff of charred wood mingling with the salt of the sea. The smell was intoxicating, the way old memories can be. "This is not how it's supposed to be," I muttered, the words barely audible over the crackling fire. Livia turned her head, her expression a mixture of understanding and defiance. "Then how are we supposed to do it?" she shot back, a challenge hanging in the air like an unspent arrow. "What if we've lost the right to even try?" The world around us faded, shadows lengthening, the city's heartbeat pulsing in time with our own. I could feel my heart racing, each thud echoing the fear of inadequacy. The smoke curled and twisted, a serpent rising in the night, reminding me of the fleeting nature of life. Smells, I thought, they hold memories captive. The scent of a Viking funeral would be fierce, intoxicating, bitter, yet sweet. A promise of rebirth mingled with the rot of decay. The memory of our ancestors danced in the smoke, laughing at our modern attempts to recreate the past. Soren's voice broke through the darkness, a whisper cutting through the tension. "What if we do it wrong?" The question lingered, a specter that haunted us, an echo from the past. I looked at him, knowing that the answer was not in grand gestures or elaborate displays, but in the raw, aching truth of our emotions. A Viking funeral was more than fire and flames, it was about the heart. It was a release, a way to purge the pain and hold on to the love. As the flames consumed the wooden pyre, I felt the heat wash over me, a reminder of life's intensity. "We are not our past," I shouted, though uncertainty dripped from my voice. "We are the choices we make in the present." The fire crackled, responding to my desperation, a roaring beast feeding on the remnants of the old. And suddenly, it felt like a pact, a promise to honor those we had lost not by recreating the past, but by living fiercely, imperfectly. The smell of burning cedar filled my lungs, and I closed my eyes. I remembered. I remembered what it felt like to laugh and weep, to live without the heavy chains of expectation. I remembered that each of us carried a bit of the past with us, but it did not define us. Our mistakes, our sorrows, they were not the end, they were the fuel for our fires. Soren and Livia stood beside me, our hands reaching out, fingers intertwining in a fragile alliance against the darkness, and as the flames danced higher, I felt a release. I breathed deeply, drawing in the smoke and the memories, and in that moment, I understood. The smell of a Viking funeral was not just the scent of burning wood or the essence of finality, it was the very essence of life, chaotic and beautiful and messy. It was an invitation to live fully, to embrace the unknown, to dance with the ghosts we carried. And as the night deepened, the fire crackled, and the smoke rose into the heavens, I knew the ghosts would never leave us. They would linger, whispering in the shadows, reminding us of the beauty of existence, of love intertwined with loss, forever pulling us deeper into the embrace of the night. The wind howled, a mournful wail that sent shivers down my spine, wrapping around me like a cold, clammy hand. Standing at the edge of the cliff, I could almost taste the salt of the ocean waves crashing below, their fury a stark contrast to the stillness in my heart. I turned, looking for her, Astrid, my sister, whose laughter had once danced through the air like wind chimes in a summer breeze. But today, her laughter was a ghost, buried beneath the weight of mourning. "I can't believe they're really doing this," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread breaking against the storm. A Viking funeral? In this day and age? It wasn't just disbelief in her words, it was anguish, a tight knot of grief that twisted in her chest, pulling at me, making me ache for something lost. "Maybe it's fitting," I replied, trying to mask my own terror with forced bravado. "He lived like one." But the truth gnawed at me, a dark, insatiable beast. The ashes of our father were soon to be set afloat, a fiery tribute to a man who had never given us the love we craved but had left behind a legacy of chaos and confusion. We were surrounded by figures clad in black, shadows against the pale sky, their faces obscured as they murmured prayers to gods long forgotten. There was something almost absurd in this macabre event, drifting back to an era where warriors were honored with arrows and flames, while here we stood, modern-day children playing at rituals that belonged in history books, yet somehow felt more real than the lives we led. "I remember the stories he told," I said, my voice trembling. "About ships that sailed the stars and warriors who died in battle, only to be reborn in Valhalla." Astrid nodded, tears glimmering like morning dew on her lashes. "But we never got to be warriors, did we? Just ghosts." Ghosts. The word echoed in the air, a painful reminder of the chasm that had grown between us and the man who had shaped our lives. I could see it in her eyes, the unspoken question, what did it mean to honor someone who had been so flawed, so disturbingly human? The flames roared to life, licking the sky in orange and gold, and for a moment, time stood still. I could almost hear the crackle of wood against the wind, like a heartbeat pounding in sync with my own. Astrid stepped back, clutching her hands to her chest as if to block out the heat, but I stepped closer, the pull of the fire like a siren song, urging me to surrender to the chaos. In that moment, everything shifted. The past rushed in, memory swirling like leaves caught in a tempest. I remembered the nights he would sit by the fire, recounting tales of his own youth, a fierce Viking spirit alive in his soul, yet he was a man torn between the life he led and the one he dreamed of. I remembered the sting of his harsh words, the bitterness that dripped from his tongue like poison, enough to turn our home into a battlefield. But what did I know about battle? What did Astrid know? We were simply children, clutching hearts full of longing, seeking solace in the shadows of his legacy. The flames danced, and I felt the weight of our decisions, the choices we had made to honor him. As the pyre blazed, the smoke curled upward, twisting into the shapes of our lost moments, memories we could never retrieve. I saw my mother's face, a mask of sorrow and resilience, fading into the haze. "He was a warrior," I murmured, half to myself, half to Astrid. "He fought battles in the world and within himself." "But at what cost?" she challenged, her voice sharp, slicing through me like a dagger. "We were the ones who suffered in silence while he fought his demons. He left us to grapple with the wreckage." A new wave of anger surged in me, a tide of betrayal crashing over the sorrow. "Then why are we here?" I demanded, gesturing toward the flames. "Why are we giving him this honor?" "We owe it to ourselves," she said softly, but there was a tremor in her voice that suggested uncertainty. "To find closure. To find peace." Closure. Peace. Those words felt like distant stars, twinkling far beyond our grasp, a promise we could barely comprehend. I could feel the ancestors watching, their spirits lingering in the air, waiting for us to make sense of our pain. And then, like a sudden crack of thunder, the realization hit me. We weren't just honoring him, we were honoring ourselves, our rage, our grief, our tangled histories. The Viking funeral, a tapestry woven with threads of our own lives. I closed my eyes and took a breath, inhaling the smoke, the ash, the heartache that permeated the air. It filled me, intoxicated me, suffocated me. The fire roared with life as if feeding off our emotions, and I could feel it, the mixture of resentment and love, a dizzying concoction that threatened to engulf me entirely. Astrid stood beside me, her eyes reflecting the flames, a mirror of my own turmoil. "What if we set our own dreams afloat?" she whispered, the idea blossoming between us, fragile yet beautiful. "What if we honor our own battles?" The flames crackled, and I felt the air grow thick with possibility, visions of Viking ships lost in time, their sails billowing against a dark sky. Dreams that had been buried beneath expectations, beneath the suffocating weight of family legacy. My heart raced as I considered it. "Then we become the warriors," I murmured. "We become the fire." The flames leapt higher, reaching for the heavens, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope among the ashes. In this strange ritual, we would reclaim our stories, our voices drowned out by a past we could no longer control. We were not merely his children, we were the architects of our own destinies, and the Viking spirit that had once haunted our family would not define us. And as the fire consumed the remnants of our father's life, I felt the shackles of grief begin to break, the chains of bitterness starting to loosen. The Viking funeral was a reckoning, a raw, unfiltered confrontation with both pain and possibility, stretching beyond the horizon like the vast sea itself. In that moment, I captured Astrid's gaze, holding it tight like a lifeline, and we stood together, two souls intertwined in shared defiance, ready to set our own journey aflame. The dark clouds loomed overhead, but beneath the weight of our loss, the flickering flame ignited a new legacy, one that would breathe life into our dreams and spark a fire that would illuminate the shadows of our hearts.